Good morning, one and all. After the grand success of 2 days Endosynergy 2021, we are starting with the third day with the Master of Masters, Dr. Vivek Hegde sir, who is the President of Indian Endodontic Society. We, the entire team of Endosynergy 2021, contribute to relay of Endo-IFIA torch. Swami Vivekananda said, every nation has a message to deliver, a mission to fulfill, a destiny to reach. The mission of India has been to guide humanity. It is a honor and feeling of pride for Team India to relay the Endo-IFIA torch from capital of India, Delhi to Chennai, IFIA 2021. This torch is an excellent embodiment of all the Endo champions have come to symbolize a celebration of the human spirit. The burning light of fire represents striving to be the best in whatever we do, never giving up despite the obstacles and contributing the best to the field of endodontics. Vande Mataram. Thank you, sir.
The Endo torch, wearing a crown that shines like the sun, symbolizing the spirit of solidarity, togetherness, and bliss, is all set for its journey from Delhi to synergize every endodontist in the country. The Indian Endodontic Society organized a promotional event for upcoming IFIA World Endodontic Conference to mark the onset of the event and spreading the message of divinity, peace, and harmony amongst the fraternity. So, in this proud moment, let's all come together and imbibe the radiance of the land.
I think if you look outside at the sky, I don't think there'll be any stars today because the galaxy of preliminaries of economics, NCR, as well as Pune, all here today. I will start with a coverage given by our father of the nation, Mohandas Karamchandani. He has said, a single light, however small, is big enough to dispel the deepest darkness within. And I think the motto of India 2021 is that it will be dispelling the darkness of ignorance and igniting it with a flame which we can all see of hope, faith, as well as knowledge. So let us all join hands together in making this a big success.
Like dreams come true. 50 years is the first time any international conference like this happening in the country. And during these COVID times, many of the conferences all over the world have been cancelled. One of the conferences is such a big number. Other day we were having a meeting of the international body. Even they are surprised how we have been able to manage not once but twice online conference. And thanks to this young team of Sanjay, Vivek, Gopi, and you all, it is not one, two, it is we. All of us.
This event which has been organized, I know what the stories that it's taken years. I know, I think maybe 8, 9 years back, this thing was there and it's successful in India. And it took so much time to organize, get things together, Gopi Krishna in Chennai. And it hands off to the Chennai team.
India is grand success, and I invite our President Dr. Vivek Hegde to call this meeting for everybody.
Good evening to everybody. I think the time which we are waiting for has arrived. So the first time it's happening in India, and so a good idea of thinking that we'll light a torch flame signifies a lot of good things. Other than being peace and harmony, it's also about intellect, it's also about teamwork, it's also about divinity. And this is going to travel a couple of states, trying to represent the entire country.
So in thank you people actually. First, Amrita, I think she came up with this idea. So thank you, Amrita, and Dr. Loman. And I think she has organized this whole program. And thank you. Very humble person, and that's the most likable part about him. And our sincere thanks to Dr. Sonali and our team for organizing this event in this particular place. Thank you very much, Sonali.
All my seniors coming here personally and making this torch possible, and blessings to the torch actually. And my special thanks to Ajay sir, Vivek sir, and Sanjay sir for actually making this small torch possible.
A glimmer of light kindled by one lamp illuminates thousands of lamps like stars, spreading wisdom and light across the nation. And now the torch moves on to the next state.
The entire team of Endosynergy wishes IFIA a grand success. A very good morning to one and all present here. It's a great pleasure of mine to share with you this delightful morning, the third day of the Scientific E-Fest Endosynergy 2021. I, Dr. Madhuri Agarwal, on behalf of the Department of Conservative Dentistry and Endodontics of MIDSR Dental College and Hospital and YCMM and RDS Dental College, Ahmednagar, welcome you all. I thank each one of you for joining us on the third day of the E-Fest. I feel privileged to extend a warm welcome to our speakers and moderator for today's session. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo, Maheshwara, Gurur Sakshat, Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri, Guruve Namah. It means Guru is the creator, preserver, destroyer. Guru is the absolute Lord himself. Salutations to that Guru. I am talking about my Guru, who does not need any introduction, as all of us joined here are aware of his indeed endless contributions in the field of endodontics. He is none other than Dr. Vivek Hegde sir. I am what I am today just because of the efforts you had taken in molding me during my post-graduation. Sir, you have been a major source of inspiration and motivation in my life. Working under your leadership has been so fulfilling. The teachings, the scoldings, the anger and the fun, everything was so important, and the worth was realized only after I stepped out of the college. The fear of giving extempore, the presentations, the seminars, the conference, the biryani treats, I miss them so much. You made post-graduation days the most exciting part of life. You are a truly inspirational counselor who sacrifices everything just to make sure that your students have the best. Words shall forever be insufficient to express how extremely grateful I am to be blessed with the opportunity to be counted amongst your students. It's an occasion like this, we get opportunity to express our gratitude to our teachers. Thanks for everything, sir. I heartily welcome you for the E-Fest Endosynergy. Sir will be enlightening us on a very clinical topic, retreatment in endodontics. We have another prestigious personality with us today, Dr. Karunakar sir, as a moderator for the first session. I am glad to welcome to you, sir. I request Dr. Kabir to introduce Dr. Karunakar.
Not audible.
Kabir,
Am I audible
you are
now?
not- Yeah, you are audible.
Yes, I'm sorry for that. Good morning, respected teachers, dear delegates, students, and my dear friends. My name is Dr. Kabir, professor at Department of Conservative Dentistry and Endodontics, MIDSR Latur. It is true that I have been assigned the duty of introducing our moderator, the great teacher himself. And believe me, I had started my preparations very well. But when I went through his CV, I had a feeling that I am not at all worth to make his introductions. Really, I felt like I'm just a child in front of him. The great teacher himself, Dr. P. Karunakar sir. First of all, I would like to thank him that he agreed to give us time out of his busy schedule and to moderate this lecture session. Sir, right now is a principal, professor, and head of conservative dentistry and endodontics at Panidia Mahavidyalaya Institute of Dental Science and Research Center, Hyderabad. He completed his BDS from SDM College of Dental Science, Dharwad in 1990 and MDS in 94 from the same institute, SDM College of Dental Sciences, Dharwad, Karnataka University. We'll go through his achievements. He is the chairman at PG Dental Board of Studies for Kaloji Narayana Rao University of Health Science, Warangal. The Senate member of the same university, Kaloji Narayana Rao University of Health Sciences, Warangal. Is a former member of Dental Council of India. He is a former president of IACDE, that is Indian Association of Conservative Dentistry and Endodontics. A former president at Andhra Pradesh State and Telangana State Indian Dental Association. He is a member of Central Council of IDA. Is a former external member of Board of Studies of Dr. NTR University of Health Sciences, Vijayawada, Manipal University, Karnataka, Kailin University, Belgaum, JSS University, Mysore, Karnataka, Conference Secretary of Cons Asia 2021 Cochin, former Vice President of IDA, former Vice President of IS, that is Indian Endodontic Society, is an external referee for PhD Open Defense at Maharashtra University of Health Sciences, Nasik. His PhD Open Defense at Datta Meghe Institute of Medical Sciences, Varda. Is a member of Governing Council, G. Pulla Reddy Dental College and Hospital, Kurnool. And most importantly, he has a certificate of appreciation from Guinness Book of World Record by IDA in recognition of his distinguished services rendered to the community at Mumbai Smiles. He has a Best President Award of IDA National Conference 2011 held at Jaipur. The Best IDA Telangana State Branch President Award, 70th IDC 2015-16 held at Mumbai. He is an organizing chairman. He has served as an organizing chairman and secretary at various conferences and conventions. He was nominated to represent Cons Asia Summit in Seoul, South Korea in year 2015. Special Olympics Bharat awarded in gratitude for dedicated services and support to Special Olympic Bharat during Special Smiles held at Paninia Institute of Dental Sciences and Research Center, Hyderabad. There's an appreciation from SCOPE, which is Society for Cancer in Oral Cavity Prevention through education for selfless and dedicated services and immense help and relief provided to the poor and needy of Andhra Pradesh through Flying Hospital at Hyderabad during November 98. He's a reviewer in the Student's textbook of operative dentistry. He's a reviewer for our own journal of conservative dentistry. He has been awarded as our alumni, our pride from prestigious SDM Dental College of Dharwad. To be the first alumni to take charge as a principal of a dental college. He has total 55 publications, out of which 19 are international publications and 25 are national. He is a member of selection committee in Jamia Millia Islamia University, New Delhi. The best paper awards were given to students who were under his guidance during the National Specialty Conference held at Kasoli 2012. Paninia Institute of Dental Science Department of Conservative Dentistry team has got Best Quiz Competition Award under his guidance. He's an external member for Pravara University, Loni. He is an editorial board member for Journal of Operative Dentistry and Endodontics.
I think Dr. Kabir, I think we'll hold and we'll just continue with Dr. Vivek's now. I think you need more time. I think you just got my CV copy,
Yes, sir.
Thanks for that generous.
Sir, I'll on behalf of everyone, I'll welcome you for this lecture. Just say.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Is the mic for me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Kabir, for that generous introduction. And once again, I sincerely thank Dr. Sunanda ma'am for taking the initiative of Endosynergy. Actually, I told madam that this particular day I was having some university assignment, but still for this Endosynergy, the energy looking at her, I couldn't say no. And also Dr. Sarvesha ma'am for taking the initiative and all your team. I'm very sure another reason why I have taken up is my good friend and also my dear brother, Dr. Vivek, is delivering the lecture. nothing else comes in between, as whether it is this particular program, anything else. We have everything to share. We share all our sorrows and joys always. Our friendship goes a long way and our journey continues. And coming to Dr. Vivek, it is indeed a great pleasure. An academician who has proved in our specialty, I always consider him a jewel in our specialty, a God-gifted personality to conservative dentistry and endodontics. When Dr. Sarvesha was mentioning in endodontics, always whenever Dr. Vivek name comes, you put him under the heading of conservative endodontics and materials, because he has mastered most of the material science also, and whatever his lectures are widely spread in conservative endo and materials. Dr. Vivek, very little I am going to speak about Dr. Vivek himself. Is currently the Vice Dean, Professor, Head of the Department, MA Rangunwala College of Dentistry, Pune, and Faculty for Lasers in Vienna, and Adjunct Professor at various colleges in India. Of course, probably Dr. Vivek must have seen above 60 to 70% of the institutions on a personal visit, because everyone wants him and everyone wants his training program to be conducted in their personal institutions. And being my own self, invited him a couple of occasions and keeps calling him every year. But whenever the time permits, he is always there for me, not just for academics, for anything beyond academics also. And second, he is also known for microendodontist par excellence, has represented India at prestigious platform like American Endodontic Congress, USA, and also Seoul and APEC, New Delhi. He is an invited speaker at various forums and conferences on both international and national platforms. He is a member of editorial board of various journals. And at present, he holds many positions in IES, SOLA, Director, Indian Board of Endodontics. He is presently CEO of White Arch Dental Center, Pune, and One Dental and online teaching platform. A passionate teacher and inspirational mentor, as Madam was mentioning in her introduction. He is also a vivid sportsman, fitness freak, and doting father. And whenever I visit Manipal in Department of Conservative Dentistry, few of the students who have produced from Manipal University, they always take the first few names, 1, 2, Dr. Vivek Hegde. Always it is a proud moment for the institution. Dr. Vivek, I am proud of you, and also you are proved yourself, and your work speaks about Dr. Vivek and himself. Dr. Vivek, as whenever I introduce a speaker like you, or I have to talk about you, that reminds me of one of the Abdul Kalam's quote, that is, a man who grows with wisdom knows what he knows is very minimum in his life. And Vivek is so humble, and though he is with abundant knowledge, he is always humble and keeps himself so low, and a wonderful human being himself, setting an example in our specialty. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, Dr. Sunanda Madam. Once again, I wish you all the best for this program. I do not know whether this program is combined with many other events. Only across the table when I am sitting now for the lecture, I come to know that there is some other program also is tagged. I just believe that this Endosynergy goes a long way, and you continue with many more programs. Thank you very much once again, the whole team, for giving me the opportunity. Dr. Vivek?
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Kind words from you. You're my senior. I have seen you for a long time. Like you said, we know each other for years now, for decades rather.
Yes.
And we have worked closely on a couple of platforms. Like our sir said, I've always been there whenever he wanted me, and he's also been there when I wanted him. So it's been mutual. The respect is always mutual. I have always enjoyed being in his university, in his college, in his department for a lot of workshops. And of course, we worked on a couple of projects on a national platform also. So thank you for your kind words, sir. It really feels really good. I know we have not met for a long time now because of the pandemic, but at least virtually we are seeing each other, if not on the phone sometimes once in a while.
Yes.
So thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your kind words. So is there any other protocol, or should I start?
No, sir, you can start directly, sir.
I can start?
Yes,
All
sir,
right.
yes.
You can give me the screen share. Then, yeah, I think I have it. All right. So good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me here. Firstly, I'd like to thank Dr. Sunanda and Dr. Sarvesha. Both madams have been really kind, and they have been after this program for a long time. I think there were a little, what do you call, planning, which took a little delay maybe. It was supposed to be a last month, I was told. But any which way, the program is happening now. And I was able to give some time. That is a nice thing for me because I was traveling, and though it is pandemic, because of some commitments in the national level that I need to work on, I was a little busy these days. But anyway, that's a nice thing. Thank you and best wishes. I know Endosynergy has taken off very well. The last 2 days, the reviews and feedbacks I've been getting is phenomenal. So congratulations, and make it a regular feature every year. That'll be a nice way for a lot of youngsters and students to get the best out of these programs. I know you had a very good lineup of speakers. I heard a little of both of them yesterday and day before, and I'll follow up for the next few days also. I'd like to thank Madhuri. She's been my student earlier, and thank you for the kind words, Madhuri. I know we were strict. We were sometimes, like I always say, प्यार भी करना आता है और डांटना भी आता है, like, you know, that way. So we've been strict on that, but it is fun. I know that in the long run, it will always benefit us. I also remember all those gatherings or the parties, the seminars, all we held. It's all fun as you grow. That these are the things that stay with us, you know. I know endodontics is important. Retreatment is even more important. But what's little things in life, I always say this way, you know, dentistry is this much, or endodontics is this much, but life is much, much bigger. So enjoy that part of life also. So you need to have a balanced life. So again, greetings to Karunakar sir. He spoke very highly of the whole, including me. And thank you, sir. I really respect and take this forward. So let me begin with today's topic. Topic is about retreatment in endodontics, and I've been given 1 hour. So we go with this. Retreatment is a very interesting topic. I know Dr. Sunanda and Dr. Sarvesha spoke to me. She spoke to me and told that, you know, that you should talk this topic, because I think they've heard it from somewhere that this topic, what I spoke somewhere earlier, they've liked it. There are many topics which are favorite to me, and retreatment definitely, I think the predominant crowd today is specialists or postgraduates going to be specialists. So for them, this is a must-know topic. There's no other way. Because if you want to, because everybody does endodontics in general dentistry, in BDS level, or after that, you have all general dentists doing endodontics. If you want to be a cut above the rest, look at that one little thing that you can make different from the rest. So retreatment is one such procedure. There are many procedures that are favorite for me, but this is the retreatment topic I'm going to speak today. So good morning, everybody. First and foremost, I would start with a prayer, only because retreatment always may not be predictable. If it has failed once for whatever reason, it can fail again. So I always want to tell some things like retreatment can be nasty, it can be painful, it can be less rewarding. When I say that, understand one thing, it is not that I want to discourage you. I want you all to be very, very logical in your approach, honest in your approach, and be truthful to the patient. Nothing is lifelong. Every procedure has a certain period of its life, maybe 10 years, maybe 15 years, maybe 20. You can't say beyond that. Like I always say this, a lot of studies were done on one material called silver amalgam. So that has been the longest living material. And those books also, you will see, the studies are for 20 or 25, not more than that. So we don't have studies, extended studies of beyond that. So if you can get 10 or 20 years of a procedure, it's a big thing. So if it's failed once, it's going to fail again. With that, I would like to start. And also, I'd like to give you a recap. So what I always do is I start with a video of a step-by-step approach of a treatment. This video is just a concise version. This is a multiple visit endodontics. It's taken me a couple of visits, 3 visits actually. I'm only putting it in 3 minutes or 2 minutes. But what I want to tell in this video is make a protocol. Plan yourself. Plan your life. Forget dentistry. It's very, very important. We as Indians, we lack on these few things, you know. We're not very disciplined. So I want you all to be very disciplined. Start making notes, start making protocol. If you're going to see a patient, like I say, retreatment example, make your notes for tomorrow. Tell your team that these are the few things I need to keep, and that's how you make. You saw I removed a sponge out. The sponge I removed is nothing but, instead of cotton, I now keep Teflon. This is a little older video where I keep sterile sponge. Okay, it's just an intermediary dressing in between as a layer between the GP or the floor and the top core built up or a semi-permanent material. You see some steps here. We'll go through it in detail. Don't worry. I'm using some files. They may not be only retreatment files. They're regular files which can be used for retreatment. This will come to the last part of the presentation, but this video only tries to tell you that there is a protocol from the first step till the last step. And that's the chart I've put here, which means from diagnosis till obturation, all those steps that I mentioned here must be followed. So that's the only request for you all. So any procedure you do, please make the steps in your mind. Your team knows it. It's a team effort. It's a synchronized way of working. Generally, when you're working on a patient, you don't want to keep talking, give me this or that. It's all around. It's just be around. They should just know the rhythm. Unless you're going off the record and track or modifying a procedure, your staff would know everything that's happening. That's what is called synchronization. So your team and you should be apart in such a way that you're one. So here you're seeing, we did a step-by-step quick obturation, following cleaning, following shaping, following calcium hydroxide placement. The message I want to give you from this video is, as far as possible, retreatment should be done in 2 visits and not 1. Because it's failed once, give the tooth a second chance. Please wait as long as you can, which means a week or 2 or 3 or 2 visits or another visit, that way. So my end answer would be, endo is still my answer. When I say that, I know wrongdoings are happening. We support everything. We also support an implant for the right cause. I don't want anybody to just extract a tooth from an implant. Retreatment also can last a tooth. Let's be holistic. With this, I'd like to just remind us about an old paper. I'm purposely showing a 1996 paper when I passed my master's. Shimon Friedman had put this paper. What he told was, when you're going for an endodontically treated teeth approach, maybe it is a repeat treatment that you need to do, evaluate well, which means there are 2 types of failures. Either you have an established failure or you have a potential failure, which may be going to fail. Now, it's an established failure. You see it's favorable or unfavorable. If it's unfavorable, like there's a broken file inside which you can't remove, there's a big ledge inside, there's a lesion that may not heal with just non-surgical, then you think of surgery straight away. That's the first step. Or if there's, suppose you have a feasibility for a coronal access, then you go with a favorable approach, which means you can consider for a retreatment. So that's about established failure, which you know is going to fail anyways. But you also have something called as a potential failure, where you have to, of course, these were evaluations on radiographs, okay, not clinical. But most of us also do that, right? We do clinical examination, but radiographs, now it is maybe CBCT if there is one. So evaluate the obturation result, see if it is satisfactory or unsatisfactory. And if it's so, then think of the next step. If it's unsatisfactory, do you want to change the restoration or just follow up? Or if it is the other way around, maybe there's nothing to be done. What I would say is, I just want to give one example here. I had a patient who came with a symptom which was referred by another dentist. Now, the last X-ray I saw, there was a lesion. When I did a consultation, I asked the patient, do you have any symptoms? He said, nothing at all, I'm good. So I casually asked the patient, do you have any more radiographs to show me? So he showed me a radiograph of another dentist who had repeated the treatment, which is about 3 years back. To my surprise, the 3-year back radiograph had a bigger lesion, and the 1-year back radiograph, or the recent radiograph, which is 1 month back radiograph, when I saw him, that was not now, had a lesser lesion, which means the lesion was healing. Patient has no symptoms, so I don't want to start again. If I know it's improved from there to there, I will want to follow up. All I told my patient was, let's make periodic radiographs every 6 months. If there's a clinical sign or symptom, just come back to me, we will take care of it. But otherwise, just observe, because sometimes the healing will go very slowly. It takes about 4 years of follow-up. Also, let's understand that the healing may also happen as scar and stop. All in all, when there's a lesion, you don't have to jump to restart if there's no symptoms. Because in the process of doing good, you sometimes may end up doing different trouble to the patient. You may break a file, you may do a ledge, you may push the GP point beyond, you may debris beyond, or some other flare-ups. We don't want to cause trouble to anybody, right? So just go systematically, be evaluating. So here's one chart again from one of the papers to know how you could do non-surgical. I'm not going to go in the detail, but again, when you see here, the follow-up should be 1 year, if there's any further review or not, or 4 years. Again, the same thing, any review or any other treatment to be done, an intervention like a surgery or not. That's for non-surgical. And surgical goes the same way. So what I would request from this paper is 1 year to 4 years is what I want you all to follow up every patient of yours. When I say this, you know what it does? It helps us in some way. We all want new patients in our practice, right? I know it's good to have new patients, it's not possible, but we tend to forget our old patients. So if you put a reminder saying that I want to see you every 6 months for the work I have done, they would think that you're going to charge money because that's what you want to build up your practice. I don't charge any money for my recalls. Believe me, I don't. They feel nice about it. Maybe one radiograph I have to spend on. But you know what? When they come, I get to see which side it's going. If it's working, we are happy. If the lesion is growing, if it's failing, it's all about lucency and opacity. If it's growing, then you better stop them. Tell them in 1 year, you're able to say, I don't want a surprise 4 years later that the lesion has become so big, it's touching the next tooth, and I have to listen to all sorts of explanation from my patients. So they think you're very logical, they're very mature enough to understand all these things because you're going systematically. Some of them don't turn up, that's a different thing. More than that, when a patient comes to you every 6 months, there's something you'll give a free consultation to them, but you may find a new filling to be done, some prophylaxis to be done, you're generating some work. So try and retain your old patients. That's a big way. And this is one way to just do that. So this is how we do it. All my recalls, repeats are because of the treatment that we have done. We put a reminder through one of the softwares. They do come, most of them, and we see this. I make a radiograph. I don't, like I said, charge them at all for that. But I'm sure that at least 60 or 70% will have something new to do. So that's how it is. Forget the retreatment or something. A follow-up is important, 1 year to 4 years. He's one of my good sports persons that I follow. There are many. Like Karunakar sir also introduced me as an avid sports person. That's true. I used to play a lot of games. I still do at times. So this is what Michael Jordan had to say. You know what? He was one of the best, world's best sports person. I won't call him only a basketballer. Even now he's got a lot of Jordan items like his shoes and apparels and all that. So he's played a lot of games. He's won a lot of games. He's lost even more games. One statement makes classical things for me. 26, I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take that winning shot and I have missed it. I have failed and failed and failed over and over again. And he is so, I mean, this is, it needs guts to speak this, you know. And I think that's what maybe he succeeded for. So what I mean to say here is, don't shy away from taking a job. Like here it's a retreatment. So what if it fails? At least you tried. Be frank to the patient. Don't promise the earth. Like I said, no lifelong business. You're trying to make it better for somebody, right? If it works, the patient is happy, you're happy. If it doesn't, we both accept it. So give it a try. Don't run away from it. You need to approach it at whatever level it is. So that's what I would like to say. To start off, we need to understand about failures. When I talk of failures, you need to understand failures can happen for many reasons. One of the first best reason is like anatomy itself. Tooth is not as simple as we think. Every tooth has got its own anatomical complications. In spite of the root canal being good, somebody has done a good treatment, you might end up having trouble in the sense that root canal may look good, but there is a good chance that maxillary first molar can have an extra root, can have extra canals. I'm just giving you a few examples of few teeth which can fail. I'm talking of mandible incisors now. High incidence, 40%, 50% is every second tooth, right? And take it from me, our side of the population, the Indian population, the Southeast Asian population, like I said, has got good amount of variations. Look at another variation of a C-shaped. Lower sevens are common, sometimes premolars also. And lastly, a premolar, mandibular. Again, extra root, extra canals. It's oftenly missed, So these are the 4 teeth I want you to take extra importance. It's not that other teeth cannot have. You can have a dense case, maybe. You can have open apex, a calcified case, a split canals, a bifid, a C shape, a J shaped, whatever you want to call. But anatomy is to be respected, and that's what is important. So that's the first failure we talk of anatomy. Now, can it be another type of failure? Yes. These are all what I see and I observe. This is my review, I say. Procedural errors. Yes, a lot of people do procedures. Ledges do happen, but ledges are not by birth. Ledges are not by God-gifted things. They are man-made. It's made by me or you. So let's be clear. If we take more care of not approaching it the wrong way or hurrying it up, overzealous instrumentation, wrong skipping of instrumentation techniques, you might end up deviating or transporting. The first step of it is ledge. And that, believe me, even today, if I get a case of a ledge, that's my most difficult tooth to treat. Like I always say, you give me a broken instrument, if it's in the apical third, if I can see the instrument, I will remove it. Ledges, I can't promise. I try. I give a lot of chances. Most of the times we manage, but many a times you don't. So that way. So see that if the first step should be good. One of the other failures can be what? Material reasons. And what are the reasons? Like an H file that's broken, that's separated. Any other file is easier to remove. An H file becomes a little more difficult because it bites at every flute of the file. There's big undercuts under the file. You know that, right? Silver points. They're not silver at all. They corrode, they bind, they're soft, and when you try to remove, sometimes they snap. That makes it more difficult because when you try and touch an ultrasonic, they melt. So, and below the curvatures, it's not easy to get it out. Still, we will try that. There are ways to manage that. So, failures can be due to different reasons like anatomic, material, procedural, whatever it is. So, what we need to understand now is let's start with the end in our minds. I'm going to try and be as simple as possible in the presentation because this topic is so vast. I could spend days together on this, and people who know me well, that I can speak on this. And I have collected a lot of data. First request to all of us, including me, that is, I would like to remember one of my good friend, Hage Shamesh here. He is an chair professor at ACTA University, Amsterdam. He had published and written some papers and he told us, I would say a gist of it. Do retreatment only if you can do it better than before, which means when you take up a retreatment, it can have more trouble, like I said. You may damage the root, you may make more trouble like breaking a file or ledging or pushing things here or there, whatever. So just answer the question, can I do it better than before? Like I see some of them removing the thin GP fillings to put up big GP fillings. That's not the reason of why you do retreatment. Retreatment doesn't look very artistic like the way a new treatment looks, a good flowy outlines, a good curves. No, it doesn't. It looks ugly at times. I don't mind. I rather have a happy patient than a good radiographic picture. So retreatment should be rewarded in another way. So you need to tell all of us and remind us for the same thing. But even before that, this is my classical statement. What does it mean? If you don't have the time to do anything for the first time, here it's the tooth for a treatment or filling or whatever, would you have time to redo that later? That's classical. So please understand one thing. I know we need to do retreatment because you may have done it fast or slow or whatever and it's failed or somebody has done something. So for anybody who's into it or just getting into it, spend more time. That's all I'd ask in anything in life. The first time is the best. That's what we tell you, right? So try and give maximum time for the first time. But truly saying, earlier when it failed, a lot of episectomies were done. But today, a lot of times, non-surgical. There are papers after papers from reputed journals like JOE and IEJ saying that close to 90% or above retreatments are done non-surgically. Only sometimes you need to do surgery. At least the first time a retreatment is done non-surgically, maximum 2 times. You cannot repeat the retreatment again and again and again. Then you think of an endodontic surgery, a replantation, an auto transplantation. There are good papers, and then an extraction. Maybe last is an implant. Of course, implant also will come. That's the sequelae, right? That's how we evolve in life. Because mouth is not a showpiece. There's going to be wear and tear. A lot of things happen in the mouth from all threads. So we need to understand that. When I remembered a word on transplantation and replantation, you know what? You should try something called as, when you transplant it or replant it back, you need to reverse turn it, resect the roots and try and put it up. That also can hold it better. There are papers on that. Try that way. It will not go into the entire socket fully. It will be short. That's why you resect it sometimes. But just try that. And they also, but it will be quick. You just have this extra oral time to play around with. That's very important to respect about. But Toro Benajed had given this article, a good article again, a lot of inputs in the article. Please read that if you get time. I want to give you a simple example of how we did treatment on this tooth. Now, this was treated by a general dentist, retreated by a general dentist, surgically treated by an oral surgeon. And this case comes to me one evening, late evening, about 8 o'clock, about 6 or 7 years back, when we were closing the clinic. Now, he came with a very good reference, so I could not refuse the treatment that evening. And unfortunately for me, he was flying out of India because Pune is an IT hub, you all know. So he's an IT professional. He wanted to fly out to the US. And he had a flight in the night. He came with a lot of pain. We prescribed him all the medications, and I opened the root canal. And I told him, you know what, when you land in the United States, go to this doctor. I'll give you a reference. See him. He will do some treatment for you. I only wanted to relieve your pain. Quickly, I went through the fiber post. We went through the GP and went there and tried to clean up and put some calcium hydroxide. I didn't have time to do the whole thing because his flight was at 12 and I saw him at 8 o'clock. He had to check in early. You know how it is, all those things. And he had a connecting flight to go. So anyway, the point I'm trying to tell you is the flight was from Pune, not Mumbai. So he had to go that way. So anyway, so the point is, quickly we did it and I put it. He comes to me, you know what, I thought the tooth is gone or some other things. He comes to me after 4 months. I had only put calcium hydroxide, but I believe in one thing. Every time you treat, the trick is a good coronal seal. Try and see you get a best seal on top, please. That's very, very important. So we got a good coronal seal. Some calcium hydroxide, you see, it's beyond. A teeth that was surgically treated and chopped. Now you see the bone is reversing there. The fiber post cement lining was not removed. That little GP was still there because I was not keen on going which side because crown root ratio was compromised. This boy comes to India after 4 months because IT professionals keep traveling, right? He comes and he sees me and he tells, I have the tooth in place and I'm happy and thankful. I was thrilled. So I called him again. I treated it back and here's a picture. He goes to US after that. I put new calcium hydroxide. I know calcium hydroxide is good for a couple of weeks, not months. But a good coronal seal, if it doesn't leak, even without calcium hydroxide, if the bone has to heal, it will. And see this picture. From there to there, and after 10 months when he came, we obturated the tooth and it's there. Now, you know what I want to show you? I want to show you that one to there and there. You know what? The whole picture has changed and it's healed. Teeth, I'm not saying that I did it and it worked. It can work for all of us. The treatment is I gave it time, I respected it, and I hoped it worked. In fact, we talk of crown lengthening, we talk of tooth lengthening, we talk of redeposition, we talk of bone formation, we talk of cemental deposition, regeneration, everything is working, right? The first time it failed because the doctor chopped the root. When you chop the root, I know you've removed a millimeter or 2 or 3, whatever, but have you gone after the root? It'll fail faster than before because the GP, the dentine, and the sealer, the seal that you get is very, very poor. And here you see the all gape is open. You can't have a good success there. It's going to fail faster than before. So for everybody who does episectomy here, understand one thing. If you have resected a root for any reason, please go after it. 3 millimeters inside the root. You can see papers from Arnaldo Castellucci, Sinku Kim, excellent paper saying that why you need to cut that much of the root, why you need to go after the root. And then today we have bioceramic materials, MTA, biodentine, total putty, put any, everything works. Okay, but you need to give a good apical seal. What we are talking of non-surgical is orthogrid. Now it becomes retro. The word retro is gone. It's called root end now. So root end preparation, root end filling is a must. But this was non-surgical treatment. I'm just going to show you only one case, but that's what it said in this paper. Endodontic surgery offers very quick success, yes, but non-surgical gives a more favorable long-term success. Between endodontic surgery, I could have done a surgery there, but I didn't have the time. Like I said, I had only 4 hours. He was flying out. Otherwise, I would have opted for a surgery maybe without dissecting much of the root. So this is one way. Let's think about it. Or another case. Now, a good implantologist friend of mine, he refers this case to me. He asked, you know what? If I extract this tooth, I have to put a bone graft. I have to wait for 3 months, and then possibly I have to go for an implant. The cost would be about 20,000 plus for before I start an implant for extraction, graft, and whatnot. She's a doctor. She said, "Can I, try a repeat retreatment?" So this doctor refers to me and says, "Can we do something? Can we try a retreatment?" I saw the picture and I told no, because the remaining dentin is poor. The floor is thin, and there's a lesion at what cost? The bone level not favorable. Still, because she's a doctor, we tried. Okay, and she's a young child, pregnant. I mean, she was just delivered. Sorry, and a young child. And I said, okay, she's a gynecologist, so we said we'll help her. So I opened the root canal. I said, I'll see you in a couple of months. And she came back and I obturated. To my surprise, if I have to show this picture, from there to there, it's healing. We did a built up. I gave her a plastic anatomic crown, a temporary crown. I told her this is not a long-lived one because I want to see more of gray in the tooth, not white. White is nothing but a garapercha, maybe a co-built up or a post or something else. There is no dentin at the cemento enamel junction. The pericervical dentin is too little. So we put a plastic crown at center because she had a small child. She will go for an implant soon in some years because the tooth is going to break. I know that. But all I'm trying to tell you is, you know what my friend made a comment? You have generated bone for me. I don't need to do a graft. So I would tell you this way. When you put grafts, you have a lot of grafts like allograft is the best, or autoplast is there, or then you have the xenograft, or you have the some other graft maybe, this was in synthetic ones or whatever. So many grafts. So my question to you all is, what better graft than the patient's own bone? If you can regenerate bone for an implant, why don't you do that? Just regenerate the bone, then let them extract. At least that, that money is saved and the tooth, that is their own bone. Because when you're putting a bone, if you're putting a freeze-dried bone or a cadaveric bone, people have objections. Their own bone you have to take from somewhere else. And I don't know if you'll go to the Ramus or somewhere to get bone. Putting a synthetic or animal bone is again controversial because of many issues. And the last bone is what? Your synthetic ones. Will it take up? I don't know. Because it's not going to convert into bone. It's going to form bone by another source. So these are all debatable. So I think you should try and generate patient's own bone. So one last clinical case before I go into the steps of retreatment. So what we need to understand here is, this is a patient treatment done by a good dentist, not bad treatment. But you know what? They've started off well. They use a 4% taper maybe. I'm okay with it. But they didn't end well. You know why? Endodontics is always the last 3 millimeters, maybe 4, maybe 5 millimeters, not the top. End of the root, you need to understand here, that's the zone of infection. That's where we have lost it. You started well and just before ending, you've given up. So if you don't treat it well, it's going to fail. And it came for retreatment because patient had a swelling and whatnot. So I went through the crown and then I gave a dressing of calcium hydroxide. And you know what I did? The last apical hook on the mesial root. That's all what I did. I just went there, cleaned it up well and treated it. That lesion out there, in a period of 6 months follow-up here, it's healed. There's no rocket science in this. Yes, there is a curvature to be followed. That apical hook had to be got. There is a trick in getting that. That's all clinical judgment. But all I'm saying is, I just cleaned the tooth well. I shaped it well. I waited for its time. So do that. It has to work. And definitely a very good core built up with good finished lines. And finished lines should be only on a sound tooth structure, please. That's a very important critical point to be taken here. So just do this much. It's good. So hashtag endo is still the answer. I will fight till the last tooth or nail of the breath. Right. So here's another video if you want to see how to get extra canals with using ultrasonics. What I'm going to show you here is, this is a CBCT analysis. This patient had done a CBCT because there's multiple roots here. A premolar having extra roots, extra canals. And if you see the CBCT, it's not only the 4, it's also the 5 having extra root, extra canal. And also in the CBCT, when I took in all planes, there's an axial section, there's sagittal, there's transverse. So in simple words, see that you see the shiny spot. As you go down, you'll see another root there. So that's how it is. Radiograph didn't show us much problem, but see here, there's another distal root there, and that's an extra canal. So all I'm asking is, when you start a retreatment, we have started it without using a rubber dam, just for getting orientation. It's already failed, right? And then once I get into the pulp chamber, we put the rubber dam. Quickly we put that. Sometimes when you put rubber dam, you lose orientation. The long axis alignment of the root is missed. You're doing a root canal, so the root alignment is important and the crown alignment. So we did a retreatment. I cleaned up the other 2 canals. And now I am trying to find the 3rd root or the 3rd canal. So StarTex or an ultrasonic coronal third is what you need to work on. Orientation, we had a 3D view because there was a CBCT. I work on that. We found that canal. That's the distal canal there. That's the canal there. And then I use my glide path files. Here I used a prototype next. You could use any rotary files. There's so many available now. Today's rotary files after retreatment removal of the GP would only be gold files for me or blue files for me. These are the only 2 files that I use for normal treatment, that's after GP is removed, not for GP removal. GP removal, you need steel files. These don't work as well. Calcium hydroxide is placed, multiple visit, and you see there, mesobuccal canal, a distobuccal canal, and a palatal canal in a premolar. Activate with an endoactivator or any sort of manual dynamic is also good, but activate it. And then you get that 3rd root. This is the canal that the other doctor had missed, and we found it. So it's not difficult, but your planning is important. So plenty of clinical tips for retreatment. Here's a chart. If you need to take a picture, please do that. When you do a diagnosis, do a case selection. Sometimes the teeth are just not good. It goes to the bucket. You need to extract it, right? So don't fight a losing battle. Be real about it. Tell the patient, yes, it's good or hopeless. Make a protocol. Like I started with protocols today. My first slide was about protocols. Entire knowledge, as far as possible, straight line, a glide path, a crown down. Very good radiographs are important because we work on a 2D of a 3D object. Very good cleaning, decent shaping, lot of medicaments, retreatment in multiple visits. You need to have a very good patient, a cooperative and an understanding patient. Why? Because if they're not good with you, you will be in trouble. You need to talk to the patient on the day 1. When they come for a consultation, I tell them, you know what? I know you're going to pay me money for sure. I know you're going to come a couple of times. But when they come, I need undisturbed time. The 1 hour or 2 hours that I need for the treatment is what I need. You're not going to talk while working. We can't talk. We talk 5 minutes before starting, after the work 5 minutes, whatever you want to ask me. In between, I want peace of mind. I play my music and I start working. That's my protocol. Okay, so that's what I meant when I do it. You can't get disturbed. I don't see my phones, they're always silent. Any which way they're silent, they never ring. Okay, my phone never rings at home also. Right? So good clinical experience you need. Consider a good time for treatment and healing. It's very important. Like I showed you cases how it heals. There are cases which didn't heal also. That will come in another presentation in surgical. Not this time, maybe another time. Prepare patients for surgical endodontics. You need to tell the next step. Like I said, a small filling becomes deep, goes to a root canal, goes to a retreatment, goes to a surgical, goes to an extraction and an implant. All these are steps in life. A permanent molar, first molar, is the most affected tooth. They come in 6 years. Normally we live to 70 years or 80 years average, right? So in the 70 years or 60 years, so much will happen. So patient needs to understand that. So guesswork and good luck is definitely needed. So, okay, that's why I started with the prayer, I told you, right? So, deep knowledge of tooth anatomy is this. The top is an actual study of a premolar done by my junior, late Dr. Kamath, my sir, who is no more, his student, and this no study was done. They had made transparent tooth and injected ink in 2002. It's about 20 years now, and this study. And I've shown you some clinical pictures of various cases, like a dense invaginatus here, and similarly other cases. And then some radiographic pictures. So I try to compare extracted tooth transparent to clinical entry points to radiographic pictures. They all have variations, and we have to accept that. So if you want to know variations, plenty of variations for different teeth. Take a picture. I don't have time to go into details. All I'm trying to tell you is if you know that these kind of variations are there, it's going to have a lot of importance. If your anatomy is good, your knowledge is good, you're good. But even after saying that, you know what, I would say start working on models and extracted teeth. At least my rule is my first 100 teeth that I work for, whatever it is, before I get into my patient. That's how I did always, for a treatment, for a retreatment, for surgical, everything. Then you're very good with many things, you know how to play around. Even now, when you get a third molar for extraction, the oral surgeon will extract it and keep it in the clinic. We don't throw it. My free time, I go under the microscope, I play around with it. It teaches me so much. So it gets me to understand. So when I get a clinical case, something like that, I correlate that work that I've done in my free time. So all I'm showing you here is when there is a lower incisor and the tooth is failing, look for the extra root, extra canal. There's always an extra root, extra canal. You can put two different files, but see that the H file doesn't go to the full length. The full length file is always the file that is the easier canal. The full length file should be always on the lingual canal, preferably. The buccal is not easy all the time. But the full length file is full, which is easier, like a K file. H file goes half the length. So you see here, this is how it is. So here's a clinical picture of the same. Again, like I said, we are short of time. I'm going quickly here. All I'm saying is this one picture we understand. This is a cross section we don't get to see in the mouth. I put two files on an extracted tooth. They're joining. In a joining canal, please work on the easier canal, full length, and lingual is more easier. Buccal has got a curvature. That curvature at the root end may have a step, and you may end up having a ledge. So please see that full length, easier canal you work, second only till the point of joining or short of it, not the full one. So here's again another clinical interpretation of the same thing. All I'm saying is at that point of joining, be careful. It can ledge, it can transport, it can break, it can snap, it can block, it can do all sorts of things. So you need to give a lot of time. It's the last 2 or 3 millimeters that becomes more difficult. The deeper the canal joins, the more difficult the canal is. So you need to understand. So again, I'd like to show O. Peters here. That was the case I showed you for retreatment where we put two files in the case anteriors. What he said is very correct. It is not possible to remove the entire remnants. There are a couple of papers, and if you see here, retreatment to come to this stage of removal of GP points is not easy. Coronal 1/3 may be easy, middle and curvature and below is difficult. So please use some files only one time because you're going to pre-curve an H file. If you have a U file like an ultrasonic, you can do that. But if you don't have an ultrasonic file, you can use a K file, H file, pre-curve it, go and wedge it between the dentine and that attachment. Maybe it's a GP point, maybe it is serum, your sealer, or maybe it is something like, some debris, whatever it is. You have to clean the dentine. You have to soak the dentine. You have to sterilize the dentine. The last 4 or 5 or 6 millimeters of dentine should be clean, which is more difficult. Otherwise, the retreatment may not be successful. So if you see here, that's what we have done. We put some H file and I removed that little bit of streak of sealer with some GP of an old retreatment. Pre-bend the files, but once you bend an H file, don't use it again, please. That's the money costing you have to put into the you should factor in. So I will skip some cases here and I'll go straight down to the main points because we will be short of time. I want to give you a straight protocol. Treatment protocol, I think we have about 15 minutes more. Retreatment protocol. In retreatment protocol, understand one thing. classify your cases. Cases cannot be the same all the time, even if it's the same tooth. So the number of visits, the appointments, the protocols, the treatment charges. I know the treatment charge is not important in this webinar, but I know there are some who are practicing. For students, it's not important now. You just focus on the theory behind it, the clinical side behind it, and how to get there. Work, work, and work. Okay. So simple cases. What's a simple cases? A straightforward case. It's a case like this, an endoperio case. I've already told the patient the bone is dipping. There's small little of resorption that will happen here for sure because there's a window here. There's a through and through defect. So I know we had not made a CBCT. It's an old case. But today, if you make a CBCT, you'll know that there's no buccal or a lingual or both the plates. Anyway, so this was easy to treat. All what we did is a 2-visit treatment, cleaned up the system, and obturated it. This is all what we did. And I referred the patient back, the referral case. But what I want to tell you is, I want to stress on the next step. This, I think everybody should attempt. Simple GP removal and simple closure. Simple case is okay. The next is not so simple, which means what? You may have extra root, you may have extra canals, you may have bulbous roots like this. This is not a good tooth anyways, but the patient didn't want an extraction. And we tried doing some treatment. We did that. See this. This is my classical step. In retreatment, whenever you're going in, right? Do not remove the entire GP. You need magnification. You need microscopes to see it. But if you remove the entire GP, your file will go to the same spot again. A good clinical tip this is, please take it. What we do is we go till the point of split by seeing through the microscope. We keep the GP because the file will not go through it then. Click up the file and try and find the other canal, complete the preparation of the other canal, then remove the GP of the main canal, the first canal that was there. Thereby, you're going to get both the canals easily. So this treatment goes this way and we treated it and there it is. And from there it goes all the steps. I'm going fast and there and there and there. That way. Calcium hydroxide, lasers, multiple visits, all that from there to there. So we treated it. Okay. Now you have another protocol that is called not at all simple cases. So you've classified it like what? Simple, not so simple, not at all simple. And this classification I do even for a regular treatment, not only retreatment, for everything. So not so simple cases are what? Like this. I've got this patient with silver points there. Maybe it'll come, maybe it'll not come, it'll break. I don't know. We did it. That's a different thing. Added to which, under the silver point, you look here, there is something called as a H5. That's another problem. So we treated it, multiple visits, calcium hydroxide dressing, and obturated here. See, this is obturated. That's there. The patient should know this, that it is not so simple. So multiple visits and the protocol all have changed. In fact, for the difficult cases, these are the kind of instruments that we throw regularly. So you have to cost in the factor, the time and everything. And this is for practitioners. Please be generous. And the highest number of files you'll see that are thrown here are not rotary, but there are 10 number files. These are old cases where we didn't have the, say, glide path files, or we didn't have a C+C pilot files. They're simple K files, stainless steel, money files. Right? Okay. There's a picture you can take. You need to do a planning essay. So this is the plan that I have for retreatment. My steps, my staff know it, I know it, my assistants know it. That's it. There's no other way. Unless I change my plan, I will discuss with them. So take a picture of this and know that, okay, these are the things I need to keep ready. So for a normal treatment, for a retreatment, for a surgical, I have everywhere charting. This is all done. It's one time doing. Put it up there. It's easy. They know what things to keep. So it'll happen. Okay. So retreatment protocols are this way. First visit. Remember one thing. I'm going to share something interesting here. Remove all old fillings. When I say old filling, it's not only GP or co-built up. It's also the top pre-anerotic filling. You have, see, we are lucky today because a lot of old fillings are coming as silver amalgam. So you get to see the contrast of silver with like resin fillings. Resin you cannot see well. You cannot contrast normal tooth to that. People are matching it so well. So you're destroying sometimes good tooth. So many things happen. My first visit is what? I don't want hypochlorite here. I'm not trying to prove a point. I am trying to convert the retreatment into a regular treatment. That's it. So what I'm trying to do is from the old one, I remove the GP, make it like a chronic treatment where there's a lesion maybe and there's nothing inside. To go till there, I don't want hypochlorite. It doesn't do anything. I want distilled water. I want saline. I want to wash it. I want to flush things out. Once I reach the apex, till then I'll only use maybe solvents, maybe saline, maybe sodium hypochlorite the last. But my second visit will be only hypochlorite because I've reached where I want to reach. We've prepared shapes that dentin needs to soak, and that's when this helps. So because you use a lot of hypochlorite, right? First day is not needed. So coming to the next slide, this is interesting. I said remove all old fillings. Now this was the case of ledge. Again, a doctor. I don't know why I get so many doctor patients, but a dentist referred me. My student referred me, in fact, endodontist. So this case had a ledge here, a strong ledge, and there was a lesion there. I took 4 visits in this case, no jokes. The first visit, I just couldn't do anything much. Second visit, I managed. Third visit, I cleaned. And fourth, I obturated. But I took about 3 months. I saw him once in 3 weeks. It's good enough. I don't mind waiting, provided the patient understands me. So we ended up doing both the teeth, 4 and the 5, 5 and the 6, I'm sorry, the premolar and the molar. But you know what? I'm trying to talk about this thing. There's an old silver filling, which I should have removed. I didn't do it. And you know what? I got stuck. While one of the times I was filing, and when I was putting a master cone, my master cone went through that, but it got a stop. It didn't go to the root end. And I realized what's happening. You know what happened? That small dot you see is very opaque and it can't be GP, and there's no sealer at the moment. It's a master cone X-ray. But then this silver from top, due to my aerator or whatever, one of the piece got dropped into the canal. Canal is open wide now, prepared well. It went into the canal. It is so difficult to remove things from inside out. You know, I had to block the other canals with Teflon, use ultrasonic at the low amplitude, lot of irrigation, and we removed it. But that's another procedure. That's why I put a slide say remove all old fillings. So that's what we did. And we managed to remove that. See here, this is what we removed. That's why I said I took 4 visits. And I know I'm not ashamed to talk about it. And then we obturated it here. We managed the ledge. But you know what? Trying to go through the ledge, understand one thing. When a case was referred, I already explained to the dentist who gave me, this is not good. Too much of flare, trying to work without a microscope. And then you understand you're not going through it. You've lost a lot of dentin. So that way. So what is more important is a team, a 4, 6, 8-handed dentistry. This is how we work. Okay, it's the protocols, but this is old time. But you see here, I keep multiple hand pieces, ultrasonic here. There are 2 ultrasonics ready, loops and microscopes all are ready. One ultrasonic I'm working, one is in spare. Not to show off. There is one with water, one without water. We have 2. We can use both. We have more actually, but we can use both. That's what I meant to say. Every clinic will have this. I know that. At least one you will have. But you can plan your treatment. You don't waste time putting the burr or chalk and removing it, because it's not for the quickness of the work. It's more for the patient. When you think you're a patient, when the patient opens the mouth, you can open for a good 1 hour. After that, it's difficult. So be quick in the work. Don't waste your time putting the burr, taking the burr. That the assistant can do it. They will help you. I don't put the burr and take the burr out. They do all the rest for me. It's fast. So today, if you see, this is the protocol we work. We have decluttered the clinic totally. We don't actually show like they showed it. This is because it's COVID times. We work on 4 hands, sometimes 6 hands, of course. We started 6 hands. For distancing, we made 4 hands, but this is 4 hands. But this is, you see, my clinic has become like an OT now. I don't even sit in the room now. There's a small table of mine in this room. I don't sit here. I go to my next room. This has got filters. It's got all the protocols what you need to follow, and fumigation units and everything possible. So this is the protocol that we follow since last 1.5 years. Right? So we go to the next. We need magnification for sure. At least start with loops, with light, because light makes a lot of difference. That's why I wrote illumination. Microscope already has a light. Ergonomics, yes, the way you sit, work, because we know as dentists, our professional hazard is huge. Lower back pain, neck pain, whatnot. A good armamentarium. I'm not saying buy tomorrow. Start buying. Even when I travel, I pick up a lot of small little things. Today, over the period of time, I've got almost everything. It's not come overnight. It's taken time. Mix and match techniques. There's no single recipe now. You can't do it with one technique, with one-way traffic. There's so many times you need to deviate. Do that. And teamwork. Teamwork carries you very, very forward. So this is the microscope. These are some of instruments, ultrasonics, long shank burrs, all that you need. DG16s, micro explorers, micro openers, and whatnot. First step is what? Coronal disassembly. Francesca Manaucci. I want to think about him. You know what he said? It's all good, but when you remove, you break the crown at times. So there are complications, implications. Think about it. No spring loaded, please. I've stopped using this long back in my life. Spring loaded can break it. If you want something like that, the same way you have pneumatic removers, compressor based, air based. So it gives that vibration and removes it slowly. That's what we do. We have this now. It goes into an aerator connection. That's it. Put the water off. And you have WAM keys. You can use one of these where you can just put a groove, turn the thing, and just pull the crown out. You have this. This is very simple. I told there's no time. The simplest one is this: make grooves, thin tapered diamonds on, like if it's a ceramic, and if it's a carbide inside, like a PFM, go with carbide burrs for metal, and make grooves, split them, take them out one by one, and that's how it goes. So one piece, another piece, and they're out. The simplest way to remove. Don't tap it, please. Make temporaries if need be. This was under the crown leakage. We need some repeats. We did core build-ups and fiber posts on this teeth, and there it goes. This is how we did it. So these are various crowns or bridges of various materials, metal, zirconia, combination, PFMs, all that I've removed in different cases. But all of them are cut or split. Understand one thing, I don't tap. I can't afford to lose that tooth because you don't know what's inside the crown. That's a very important thing to understand. Right? So one more tip. On the day, suppose some patient comes with pain, right? And you need to do something. So please do this. Don't have to cut the crown, you have no time. So what I did is, if it's a PFM for ceramic, go through with diamond. A round is preferred. And when you cross the diamond, when it's metal, diamond doesn't cut best for metal. You need a carbide. So there's two different burrs of the same tooth. So here, best is at this time, remove the temporary crown and there's a dressing going on. See above this, a thin lining of a putty index made and a flowable 3M Pro-Tem made on this. The patient goes this way because I had to wait for this case for at least 3 months, which I wait always. And you see the lesion has become smaller. There are extra canals and extra roots here because you can see septum here. See this? I did sectional obturation because we wanted to put fiber posts on this and then obturated because a referred case. But all I'm trying to tell you is there's a temporary bridge that's connecting. See the cement lining there? That means there's a bridge connecting. It is a temporary plastic bridge. Remove this because you get to see more things. So the 3-month follow-up. I would give you another reference to this. Again, Manaucci said the same thing. He works in King's College. Again, a very renowned clinician, academician, researcher. He said prognosis can be dubious. So delay the final restoration. Don't complete it for the sake of it and then get into surprises. Protect it with an interim restoration is what he said. That's what we do here. That's exactly, I'm going to show you one case. This patient comes to me, again, an outstation patient, a scientist who works in another country, an Indian, of course. He gets his treatment done from me and it disappears. He comes after 6 months or 7 months. You know what I did? I cut the crown. It leaked only because the crown was not going down to the margin here. So what we did, we did a CBCT, of course. It was done for another reason because the other side is an implant. So there's a sectional CBCT done. So I got this tooth for this tooth also. And then I put calcium hydroxide. This is not obturation. So two things you take a message from here, that crown that didn't go till there, we did a good pre-endodontic build-up. Tooth was clean. We put calcium hydroxide. This is not obturation, please. This is calcium hydroxide. But what I want to show you is from there, we prepped the tooth, removed the old crown, gave him a plastic crown, anatomic crown. After 7 months, when he came this way, I went through it, I removed it. The lesion, which was so big, is behaving. You have the reversal of the periodontium. What best compliment you want? Tell me. I have not obturated. I'm not in a hurry. Suppose there were surprises, it would have happened by now. Then you remove the crown and go for whatever crown you want. Complete the root canal now. You're good. It's behaved. Okay. So, like this is some of the small little tips you want. You can use ultrasonics here, that to see if there's any other canal like middle mesial in between. I've got the mesiobuccal mesiolingual. So similarly, there's so many other videos. There's an ultrasonic that you see, or a post removal video if you want. Here's a video. It's a long video. So just clean up the tooth, go that way, and then you will go, I'm going faster. Maybe you'll use an ultrasonic reverse mode to remove that post. Again, you're using ultrasonics to remove the post. Sorry. I'm going fast, please. Then you're doing the H file, binding to pull a thing, remove the GP, clean the system, put calcium hydroxide, use ultrasonics, rotary, all that happens. And definitely activate. This is one of the PAT systems that you can use. Now there's a new vario that's come. Put the dry the canal, deposit calcium hydroxide. That's calcium hydroxide depositing. You don't inject, please. You eject. Okay, you just drop it there. Activate it again with a dynamic activation, a manual one. You decide. Put some small little Teflon. You see this Teflon? That's why I'm keeping the video. It's a small trick. Teflon is nothing but a plumber's tape. Autoclave them, please. Make small beads. Put it in the autoclave, and then I like to put a flowable resin for anteriors, a packable resin for posteriors always. I don't use temporary cements. A big one, I use glass hammer sometimes, type 2 restorative. And then we go in, see this flow, closer to that way. A minimum thickness of a temporary dressing on top should be at least 4 millimeters to prove your success. That's it, right? So that is how you remove a post. If there's a post, there's another video of remove a silver points, but please reevaluate the tooth if it's good or not. I will show you another video of removing a silver point because I'm running short of time. So we will show some quick small videos. If you have a silver point and if there's an extension like this, don't miss the chance of cutting it to ground level or the floor level. Try and get the hold with a tweezer or a locking plier. Indirect ultrasonics I'm giving. See that? I give indirect ultrasonics and it jumps out. Silver point is not actually silver, it corrodes, it's black. You see this? That's why it gets bound, it breaks. So all I'm asking is, when you're using it, nothing called direct ultrasonics. We removed from one canal like distal canal. Now I'm trying to remove mesial canal. Lock it, get the ultrasonic. Any ultrasonic is okay for energy. It's indirect. You don't give direct like how you do a broken instrument. You remove that. And that way you remove one by one by one. Once you remove the silver points, you go down to GP and remove it. You may also have a broken instrument removal. That topic is altogether a different topic. I won't cover it today. So we go that way. So again, you got all the canals there. See this? All the silver points are removed, both in premolar and the molar, and we are there. So I just take it down straight away. There are broken instruments like this. Sometimes when you remove broken instruments, you know what? This is a broken instrument video, but I think I'll skip that video. I'll show you a case, same case. A broken instrument doesn't come in one piece sometimes. It's such a long file there. You know what happened? Next piece became smaller, broke again. Next piece broke again. This is what I said. You expect and accept complications. Broke again. So there are 3 or 4 times I had to break a file. The more you break a file, the more deeper you go, the more dentin you lose. That's the sad part. So you need to understand. And then we got into the full length, and then possibly we obturated it. But to get there, it's not a single visit. It's a multiple visit treatment. So we need to understand that, right? So just the last few slides now. I'm going to go there. So you need to irrigate well, medicate well, surgical options. Just one slide here. When you do a retreatment, take this as a choice, please. This is a good chart to follow. Firstly, you try and open up and see. When you open, you can get insoluble resins. Like there are so many Russian pastes and so many other things. There are old fillings done in different places. Like old hospitals used to use this earlier. Like government hospitals or maybe army hospitals or wherever. So you need ultrasonics because they're very hard. Your solvents won't work. Rotaries can't go through. Then you need ultrasonics. You also may have sometimes just the GP point. Then you know what? Simple techniques, hand files, rotary files, or sometimes solvents are good or no solvents. That's your choice. And sometimes you have soluble ones. So in soluble paste, you need to use again a combination, a mix and match. Solvents can be used. I use less of solvents because solvents goes beyond that itself is an irritation. So you may have to wait a little longer at times. So try and be simplified in your approach. This is another video. I won't show you that. All I tell you is to conclude, I would go to the last slides because I know it's a very long presentation. Just accept and expect complications and avoid complications like this. Like if you see here, some of the work that I saw, these are all pictures I've collected from college or wherever it is retreatment has been done, but see what happened here. There's still GP, but it's transported. And when they showed me a master cone X-ray, the file is going straight because now you're deviated. This may not work now. The problem is something else because the main canal where the zone of infection is lost. This is my own case. For no reason, this is not a retreatment, it's a treatment. GP point was chosen. Maybe it was an old GP point, I don't know. When I put a master cone, they were all looking good. When I removed the GP point, one GP point broke. And this is what I said, expect and accept complications. When I removed the GP point, one portion is still there. I tried to pick the GP point in the H files, braiding, whatever technique I wanted to, it got pushed more. And it is there. We could not remove it. Now it's a surgical approach if you want to. I informed the patient, I informed the doctor who referred the patient also. We are following up this case. It's like a couple of years now, 2 or 3 years. Patient is happy. There's a foreign body in the system, which you should need to understand. Purposely, nobody wants to do it, right? But it's happened. It's happened in my hands. But the patient has been told. So you were trying to do good, but for no reason, the GP point got stuck and got bitten there and didn't come out. So anyway, so expect complications. It can be a lateral perforation. It can be a broken instrument like this. It can be a file there. It can be file going beyond. Anything can happen. So let's understand few of the complications that always happens. So to end my statement, I only want to give you this one chart, which is from the books. I started my presentation saying there's nothing called 100% or lifelong. Textbooks have told us this. The best case is what? Vital case. You can't have 100%, 90 to 98%, wherein 2% or 10% can still fail out of your 100 cases that you treated. Non-vital, that thing drops to 50 to 60% if you have good quality of root canal. Retreatment, you only can get 89 or 96%. This is on the standard textbook. Retreatment of teeth with periapical, it drops to 60 to 70%, which means still about 30 or 40% root canals can fail. So you need to understand. So with this, I'd like to give one statement. You know what? Let's not hurry with your work. One of my, another favorite good person I follow. You know what he said once? No matter how good or great your talent is, some things just take time. You can't produce a baby in 1 month by making 9 women pregnant, right? If it takes 9 months, it takes 9 months. So please give it time to work well. That's important. That's Warren Buffett for you. So thank you for inviting me here. And this is our clinic, our setup in Pune. Whenever you happen to be in Pune, most welcome. Be my guest. I'll be happy to help you. With this, I'd like to thank you for a patient hearing. Ultrasonically, I'd like to thank you. I also want to, this is like one classical signature that we always do, you know. We have this thermoplastic way of obturating. I know I've tried to stick to my time, but also one more thing. I know there are a few viewers here. We have this One Dental platform. Karunakar sir introduced me that way also. So this is a coupon code called One Dental for the Endosynergy is SYN. One Dental OD SYN. You can go into the website called onedental.co.in. You will get a 30 free membership. There are some free platform there. You can try and apply yourself. And to become a member, you need to go through this. Just be a One Dental member. A lot of things are free. Some are free, some are with a fee also. You choose what you want to go in for. It's for all the dentists, the general dentist platform. With this, I'd like to thank everybody for being here, inviting me. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
And if there's any other questions that I need to answer, Karunakar sir, Sunanda ma'am, Sarvesha ma'am, the team, I'm here. Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much.
I can't hear you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I'm audible?
Yes, yes.
I'm audible. Okay. It was a scholarly presentation as usual by Vivek Hegde sir that reflected his experience and dedication in academics. And he very beautifully articulated endodontics in relation with life, which itself showcased his mastery and command over the profession. Thank you, sir. And it's a matter of pride for all of us that IAS President Dr. Vivek Hegde sir and equally Dr. Vibha ma'am, IACD President, both belong to our state Maharashtra. Yes, and we are really fortunate to have such senior resourceful academicians like Dr. Karunakar sir and Dr. Vivek Hegde sir on this Endosynergy platform. And I must say that you have raised the bar. Thank you so much. Yes, now we'll start with the question answer session.
Karunakar sir, there are questions in the WhatsApp group. You can continue with the session, sir.
You are putting the question, or you want me to read?
And you can read, sir. There are questions in the question box.
Okay. There are some of them are similar questions, and one or two I'll just put them. I
Yeah.
think most of us, or majority of them viewing, will have this question. What is the best system or method to remove a separated file fragment, particularly from the apical thirds? I think the one who has attended the full course of the lecture must have got the answer, but still I will leave it to Dr. Vivek to go through. And another one is, how many months should we keep a follow-up of a retreated tooth with a healing periapical lesion to call it a success? I think to Vivek.
Thank you, sir. I think Karunakar sir told the answer also. The thing is, he told that's what. I covered it quite a lot in this.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember coming for a separated instrument lecture for a IACD platform in Mumbai, where sir and all his PGs are attended. In fact, even in his college, we did webinars on this, seminar also, and hands-on also. The question is very simple, okay? You told me, the question is this way. There's a separated instrument and it's apical third.
Yes.
Understand every time the instrument easy, any work is easy on the coronal third, next easy is middle third, the most difficult is apical third. Now, to go there, firstly, you need to see it, which means you need to get a straight line approach. Try and get a flare as much as possible without compromising dentine, because the remaining dentine thickness is the most critical part. I don't want you to enlarge so much to see the instrument. The operation may be successful of removing an instrument, but there's no tooth left. That's a very sad thing, It might happen with beginners. Let it happen once or twice, I can understand. That's why I said work with the extracted teeth. But the first best is to remove if you can see it. But apical third, below the curve, because when I say apical third, mostly it's curved tooth, like a molar. Try and bypass. To bypass, you have to pre-curve your file, preferably hand files, and get your inner curvature. Because every file gets to straighten up and takes the outer curvature. You want the inner curvature. It's not easy. I can say theoretically very many things, but to get the inner curvature is an art by itself. And you need to actually peck and spend a lot of time with, solvents. When I say solvent, it is like softening agents, maybe liquid EDTA, maybe some ultrasonics, maybe some vibrations, all those chelating agents, so many things. Once you do that, if you can get to bypass it, you can go with the file in there, provided it's not very close to the apex. Because the last 3 millimeters should be a good seal. I don't want a file there. So you can remove a file, you can bypass a file, you can leave it alone, just an observation. Or you can surgically remove it. If it's in the apical third, when you open a flap, you're going to cut 3 millimeters for sure. So the file will come with the root.
Yeah.
That's another way. So these are 3 or 4 ways to approach a broken instrument at the apical third. See what's best for you. I would want to remove it, if not bypass it for the first non-surgical approach. Surgical comes the next way, because there are limitations in surgery. As you go posteriorly, or use a palatal root or the mesolingual root, you cannot do on a molar that easily. You struggle. I'm telling you, I'm being frank with you. I do surgeries, I work with a team, I still struggle at times, not easy. But coming to the point of how much to follow up, I think, make it a habit for any treatment. Let it be a simple treatment, not even a retreatment. See the patient 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, the first year, 4 times. Second year onwards, every 6 months. Third year onwards, every year. 4 years is a good time to treat. Like I said, calling a patient back is good for you. It's your patient. They will be with you and they will like it because you're respecting that. They may not turn up, that's a different thing. But from your side, make an effort because you know which side is going. Why did I say 3 months? Is because books have told us for anything good or bad, that's lesion or healing or increasing of lesion. That's opacity or lucency. That's how we see, right? It's healing or not. For it to happen, it takes 4 to 12 weeks for it to improve or worsen, both ways. Lesion, that is opacity or lucency. So in 3 months, you know which side you're going. You don't need to wait for the whole lesion to heal. If it starts reducing in size, You're good with it. Your protocol is good. Everything is good. Go ahead with the obturation. I'm good with it. Or if you're obturated, you're very good. Follow it up. So that's all I'd say. I want to follow it. And again, I classify my cases. The most difficult cases, I want to see often, 3 months. Or I may call in 6 months. But every 6 months follow-up for the first few years is very good. You don't have to follow lifelong. 3 years, 4 years is what books also told us. Thank you.
I think there is another one, maybe majority of us have these things in mind. Next question is, too many Chinese and Korean MTA-based materials have flooded the market. Are they effective? How to choose?
You know what? I would say go with a very well peer-reviewed and worked materials. I know, I agree with you. This is not about only MTA, with every material. See, in some places, I don't want to go with any names like China or Korea or anywhere. You are from other countries also, including our country.
Yeah, absolutely.
The protocols are not followed at times. There's no patency law at times. There's no guidelines for FDA or other approvals. So they're getting materials very easily. So I don't want to comment on that. I would only want you to tell that go with the best materials. I know it's a little expensive, but there are options there. If you go with the review of good materials around the world, yes, sir. So if you go with the review with good materials, they are the best to use. That's all I feel, Don't go with the lesser ones. Yeah.
That is true.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think we are done with the questions. Anything else, ma'am?
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, coming to the
so there is one more question that in elaboration they were asking how to remove the ledge, sir. Any steps to remove the ledge?
Ledge is itself a good presentation. I have a big one. The ledge, you know what? The problem is we don't know which wall is a ledge. First work on the opposite side of it, but also it can happen on the sides of it. So you have to a very small tip I'll give you. Pre-curve the file like a hockey stick bend. Prefer a file that's got a strong cutting edge. A tip should be designed well, like say Endopilot or your C+ or a C Pilot or one of those, where the tip design is active and it is the first 4 millimeters have got strong working against resistance. So these are good files to start off with. Pre-curve the first 3 millimeters, make it a hockey stick bend and drop it in the canal, before which you're enlarging the canal space a little wider. Ledge is never at the place where the ledge has happened. Ledge is much before it, around it. So always work. Suppose the ledge is, you think the ledge is at about 15 millimeters. I would work at 15, then 14.5, 14, and that way. And with the hockey stick bend, give a quarter turn, half turn, 3/4, 1. Just keeping quarter turns. Every quarter turn with a lot of irrigation in place, you try and hit the dentinal wall and the wall, because ledge is in the wall now. Which wall I cannot say. If it is coronal, maybe sometimes you can see, but below the curvatures, you can't see even in the microscope. Let's be clear. Microscope, the principle is straight. It's optics, right? So you can't see after the curvature. It's all a lot of guesswork and good luck. But if you get a bite in that moment that I'm talking, don't leave it then, please. Sometimes the patient will say, ouch, that means there's a tissue or there's something there in the canal. Don't leave that spot. That's a sweet spot. Don't pull the file out. It will not go back in again. Take a new file you buy always when you do the ledge treatment. Short strokes, push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, push, pull for a couple of times till you get the file loose. When it's a new file, the file loses its fruit sometimes. If the 10 goes, try a 15. If 15 goes, everything goes. If 15 doesn't go, you need to work with the 12.5. So try and get 2 or 3 files. When the first file goes, you know which side it's gone. Keep the stopper, the mark of the stopper towards the side of the curvature where it's gone inside. These are few tips to understand. But it's too short an answer to give because ledge itself, I'm still, trying to master it many ways. So it's taken me years. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now,
I think
we start with the.
Yes, sir. You're okay, madam? Done?
Yeah, it's okay, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
I think we will be concluding at this point of time.
Yes,
As Dr. Vivek, as we all know that people are involved so much, like even you continue further, I mean, the lecture will not be, probably you have another schedule. But the way
there are actually
the whole thing
many
and
questions.
so simplified in a nutshell, I think Dr. Vivek, really, you've done extremely well this topic, and it has gone to the minds. And also, important thing is the way he infuses confidence in the beginners. It's amazing. Like whatever he says, it's very simple. Like you can do it. Like many times, many speakers, when they talk, okay, this is going to be very tough, very complicated, this case you cannot attempt, like you are infusing a negative mind. But Dr. Vivek, the great quality of him is, like once Einstein has said, a man who has not made a mistake has not tried anything new in his life. So Dr. Vivek says, you do it. You do commit mistake and correct it. After all, our postgraduates and the students need that kind of teachers. And Dr. Vivek, really, you've done a wonderful job. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be part of this. Though in between 40 to 45 minutes, I was away. I missed it, but I am sure that you all have had enriched knowledge you are going back with. Thank you very much. Once again, Sunanda ma'am and team for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being with us. Please accept our token of appreciation with our sincere thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for being with us. We have a lot in store for us. Another noted personality in the field of lasers, Dr. Chandrasekhar Yavgal, sir, is with us. Welcome, sir.
Vivek sir, glad to see you after ages.
Seriously, I know Chandrasekhar, we go a long way. He's also from Dharwad, another alumni like Karunakar sir, and we worked some in lasers for a long time. He was one of the earliest person who got in with us for lasers, you know. So I'm glad that you're here. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. I remember those days, the early encouragement that you gave. 2006, 2007, when we used to meet during the solar modules. I mean, it's an honor to share the podium with you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
The session will be moderated by one of the most humble and dynamic person, Dr. Shashi Rekha ma'am. I request Dr. Ajay Shinde to introduce.
Good morning to all. Am I audible?
Yeah, you
Yes,
are
yes.
audible.
First of all, I would like to thank my HOD, Dr. Sunanda, for giving me this opportunity to introduce a renowned HOD from the Bhubaneswaram, Dr. Shashi Rekha Govind. And I would like to thank Dr. Shashi Rekha Govind for giving us time from her busy schedule. Start with introduction of Shashi Rekha Govind. Completed her undergraduation from Bangalore University in 2001 and her post-graduation from Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, Bangalore in 2007. Currently, she is professor and head in the Department of Conservative Dentistry and Endodontics. PhD guidance. She did her PhD scholar in application of biomaterials in cardiology. She did her postgraduate diploma in clinical research from IDA. She is a clinical demonstrator for undergraduates and postgraduate students and actively involved in various research activities. He is also a member for Academic Council, Board of Studies from the Department of Shiksha O Anusandan, deemed university. He has 16 years of clinical experience and has exposure of state-of-the-art techniques in microendodontics, microaesthetics, and specialized in management of separated instruments and cosmetic dentistry. He has numerous publications in various national and international peer-reviewed journals. 5 patents applied, and out of them, 2 patents have grants. He has attended and presented many papers in national and international conferences. He is a reviewer and editorial member for national and international journals. He was honored with a Global Faculty Award in 2020, Women Researcher Award in 2021 by International Scientist Award of Engineering, Science and Medicine, Research Excellence Award 2021 by Institute of Scholars. She is associated with various national and international forums, and she has been invited as a guest speaker for national and international forum. Cleared her diploma in Indian Board of Endodontics in the year 2021. She is a panel speaker for Ivoclear Viva Dent. Thank you so much, ma'am. Over to you, Dr. Shashirekha, ma'am.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction of mine. At this junction,
Excuse me, you have to unmute your.
Okay. Now I'm audible, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you for this kind introduction of mine. Wholeheartedly, I acknowledge and thank Dr. Sarvesha ma'am and Sunanda ma'am for this opportunity. I take privilege to introduce Dr. Chandrasekhar, the session speaker. He is a pioneer in application of laser in clinical practice. So, Dr. Chandrasekhar is an internationally acclaimed clinician, speaker, and PhD researcher on laser, pediatric dentistry, and pediatric orthodontics. He is a topper in undergraduate level and gold medalist in pediatric dentistry. He completed his diploma in orthodontics from Orthodontic World Institute, Barcelona, and head at MMNGH Institute of Dental Sciences, Belgaum. Dr. Chandrasekhar is a fellow of the International College of Dentists, associate fellow of the World Clinical Laser Institute, and diplomate of the International College of Neuromuscular Orthodontics and Gnatology, Italy. He is the only Indian person by World Association of Laser Therapy, France, in October 2018. To his credit, he has more than 70 publications in national and international peer-reviewed journals and has conducted more than 300 lectures, workshops, and webinars on lasers, pediatrics, preventive and restorative dentistry nationally as well as internationally, like Singapore, Kuwait, France, and Spain. At this juncture, I would like to call upon Dr. Chandrasekhar to take over the platform and enlighten us about the laser and its application in clinical as well as in research opportunity. Over to you, Dr. Chandrasekhar.
Madam, thank you so much for that. Madam, thank you so much for that introduction. And
welcome, sir.
At the outset, let me take this opportunity to thank Sunanda madam and Dr. Sarvesha madam for giving me this opportunity to be with you here today. And I saw the way Endosynergy is being conducted, and hats off to the organizers. I can see the amount of hard work that is being put in, and the results are there to see. Galaxy of speakers, and it's indeed my pleasure and honor to share the platform with such eminent endodontists from all across the country. So can I start my screen share? Am I audible?
Yeah.
You can start sharing. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Shashireka.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I guess here we are, and after that intense session from Dr. Vivek Hegde, I thought let me entertain you guys. So if you are at home, grab a cup of coffee, enjoy the show. I'm not sure you are allowed to do that if you are in your college, so please don't blame me for if you don't have the permission to do that. So here I am. This is what I am expected to talk to you today about: laser Veda, laser dentistry as easy as 1, 2, 3. So initially, I was under the impression that this session was only for endodontists and postgraduates in endodontics and faculty members of conservative dentistry and endodontics. I got to know yesterday that there are quite a few periodontists who will be joining in, some oral medicine, oral pathologists, some general practitioners, some pediatric dentists. So I've tried to add up some clinical applications which will be useful for all the specialties of dentistry, predominantly endodontics. Right. So a few disclosures. I head the Department of Pediatric Dentistry at Maratha Mandal Dental College, Belgaum, which is affiliated to Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences. I'm also the India mentor for the Asian Academy of Laser Therapy and currently on the board of directors for VALT 2021-24. So during the course of this presentation, since this field is a technology dominated subject, I'll be forced to show you some demonstrations, some cases, some equipments, but I do not necessarily endorse any of them. So after that disclosure, let me start straight. Last 1.5, 2 years, we are in the midst of a pandemic. Dentists everywhere across the globe are struggling. Same story in Australia, same story in Ireland. This has impacted the field like never before, and it's become very difficult for us to resume our day-to-day clinical practice the way we used to do it before 2019. So the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is pretty significant, and few of these stats will give you an estimate of what I'm trying to tell you. Preventive dental treatment has dropped almost 64% due to the pandemic, and even after the unlock, dentists are bearing the brunt of this pandemic. So what's the way forward? So every day we get up in the morning and keep reading the same things again and again and again. So somewhere, we need to find a way out. So I thought that amidst all this, let's try and rejuvenate ourselves and look forward to something interesting in our fields, because according to this recent article by Dr. Srivatsa Bharadwaj, he says that just like we do a cardiopulmonary resuscitation to save a patient, some kind of a CPR is needed for dentistry to survive post this pandemic. So can laser technology be that CPR that we are looking for? Let's try and figure out in the next 1 hour or so. But when we are faced with a calamity of this magnitude, we are often reminded that we need some inspirational figure, because only those leaders who act boldly in the time of crisis and change are the ones who are willingly followed. So I don't know what you guys did the last year in the lockdown and this year in the lockdown, but I spent most of my time binge watching this web series because I really found the leader very inspiring. And I can't wait for the next season, which is hitting on September 3rd. So I thought that for the next 1 hour or so, let me entertain you with this. You must have got bored of hearing the same stuff again and again, the same dental jargon. So let's sit back and relax and have a nice morning the next 1 hour or so. So if you remember this, and more than anything, if in the last 1 or 2 years, because of the impact that COVID has had on dentistry, most of you would have thought that have I done the right choice? I mean, am I in the right profession? Do I still have a future, or this is a sinking ship? So these thoughts are normal, and whenever I get those thoughts, I'm reminded of the main title song and the lyrics of this web series, which is very very appropriate for the kind of choices that we need to make in our life. And it says that if I'm choosing you and I'm choosing wrong, I'm more than happy doing that. And I guess that's the time that we need to say this to our profession.
If I stay with you, if I'm choosing wrong, I don't care at all. If I'm losing now, but I'm winning late, that's all I want. Now we need some space, cause I feel for you and I wanna change. Growing up alone, it seems so short, I can't explain. Whatever happens in the future, trusting this I need. Don't try to make anything else, even when you feel I don't care at all. I am lost. I don't care at all. Lost my time, my life is going on.
If I'm losing now but I'm winning late, that's all I want, right? So let's go on this energy heist. So we can't go on a money heist for sure. So what's this energy heist about, and can this be that CPR that our profession, our subject, and our clinical practice needs post COVID-19? So that's going to be the focus of my talk today. Like I told you, it's going to be fun. I'm not going to give you too much of technical jargon. I want you guys to sit back, relax, and I'm here to entertain you for the next 1 hour. So we'll be trying to see how the future of multi-wavelength laser applications could influence the way we practice dentistry post COVID-19. And I prefer calling this the energy heist for obvious reasons. Why the energy heist? What's the connection? I mean, if you belong to that generation of dentists who think that lasers can only do cutting, then I'm sorry. I mean, you belong to the old school of laser dentistry. So I'm damn sure that we would have understood laser dentistry and classified lasers as this soft and hard and biostimulatory and all those things. But then I prefer to look at it from a slightly different angle. I prefer to look at laser dentistry or laser light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation as the purest form of energy that we have with us. So what we will do with this energy will determine how or what results we need to expect when we use it for our clinical applications. So to begin with, if I can change one thing about your thinking, that would be to stop looking at laser as a cutting tool. If you ask me, we were supposed to be healers to begin with, but somewhere along this journey, sharp line angles and round point angles became so important, flat pulpal floors became so important that we got our mechanical obsession about the mechanical concepts that we were learning in dentistry ahead of everything else, and we seem to have lost that healing touch. How dare I say that on an endodontic symposium? Yes, that is the truth, and I'm here to speak my mind. And somewhere, this beautiful science, if with this pure form of energy in hand, I guess we have it in us to literally get that healing touch back and do much more than cutting. And that is exactly why I feel that this is the way forward, because when we are faced with a calamity like the COVID-19, obviously we need to build bridges and not barriers. It is said that when we face a difficult situation, wise men build bridges, fools build barriers. So it's time we prove that we are wise by understanding how this pure form of energy can help us in doing so. Now I have used this word pure, pure, pure. Hota kya hai? What exactly is this pure? When I talk about light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation, I'm obviously talking about a form of electromagnetic radiation, because light is a kind of AMR. It exists in the form of particles called photons, but it travels in the form of a wave. So this duality of light is what makes it so fascinating. Now when I say a pure form of light, what I mean is that all the photons that make up this particular beam of light are monochromatic, made up of one wavelength, and they are all going in one direction. They are unidirectional, that's why they are collimated. More importantly, the photons that make up this beam of light are spatio-temporally in synchrony with each other. I loved the title that you guys have given to this online symposium. You have called this Endosynergy. How beautiful. I mean, whosever idea it was to call this Endosynergy, hats off to you. Synergy is what we need to tide over the difficulties that we are facing today. Synergy is the one that is the need of the hour. And when we talk about laser as a pure form of light, it is the synergy between the photons, the spatio-temporal correlation and synchrony is what makes it so special. So I would like to classify this in a slightly different way. So when I say laser Veda, laser dentistry as easy as 1, 2, 3, I mean this. I'm referring to the laser healing triangle, and there are 3 components of this laser healing triangle. The predominant ones. First one is the photothermal component, or popularly called as the surgical component, which everyone is aware of. But for far too long, that has been the limit to our imagination. We have always looked at laser as a tool to substitute the scalpel or to substitute the drill. So when we use the laser as a substitute for the drill, we call it as a hard tissue laser, and when we use the laser as a substitute for the scalpel, we call it as a soft tissue laser. But is that the right way to classify that? By doing so, are we not limiting our own imagination? It's time we think out of the box. It's time we don't put a cap on our own imagination and think what this pure form of energy can do other than cutting. And that's where the 2 steps in. We call that as photobiomodulation. That means we are using the same pure energy, but we are using it in a very, very low intensity, low power, so that it can end up stimulating tissues and not thermally damaging the tissues. The other aspect is wherein we bring an endogenous chromophore, an exogenous chromophore together, and we use an intermediary photosensitizer to bring about our desired results. And because there is an exogenous photosensitizer involved in this whole process makes it very dynamic. That's why we call it as photodynamic therapy, PDT. So I would look at laser Veda as something that is standing on these 3 pillars: photothermal or the surgical aspects, photobiomodulatory or the stimulatory aspects, photodynamic aspects wherein we use an intermediary exogenous chromophore to bring about the desired results. So this game is pretty simple. There is not rocket science in this. I don't know if anyone has told you that laser dentistry is a very difficult field. It is not. It is just that you need that imagination to understand where you can use this energy, where you will use the 1, that is thermal, where you will use the 2, that is PBM, where you will use the 3. So you understand the 1, 2 and the 3, your job becomes that easy, right? So let's start with the 1, something that everybody understands, something that everybody knows. Everybody here who's listening to this knows that laser is one way of achieving a surgical outcome with bare minimum bleeding, with bare minimum pain, and the patient walks out of the operatory without any sutures, without any antibiotics or painkillers. This is something that is very well known, and that is the reason why whenever you hear about a laser, the first thing that comes to your mind is, I can cut a frenum and the patient will not have any pain. I can cut a gingival overgrowth without anesthetizing the patient. I can raise a flap, I can do a fibroma excision, I can cut a mucosal. If it's a pediatric patient, I do a mucosal excision and the patient walks back home without a suture in the mouth. So this is what the general perception about laser science is, and it is pretty right, and that's how the first part, the laser surgery, is dependent on the heat that the photons generate, because there has to be a conversion, a photothermal conversion. The energy that the photons carry has to be transferred to the tissues. So once that energy gets transferred, the tissues use that energy to raise the boiling point of the water inside the tissues across the boiling point. The moment it crosses the boiling point, it vaporizes, and the vapor has to go out. In the process of going out, in the process of vaporizing, it will ablate or cut the overlying tissues. This is the mechanism of cutting when we use laser for cutting. This is based obviously on the burning glass principle, and I'm sure all of you would have tried this as kids. You would have taken a magnifying glass, held it in bright sunlight, and the sun's rays would pass through the magnifying glass, and the paper or any other piece of thing that would be kept beneath the magnifying glass would catch fire. How did it catch fire? It caught fire because you used the same sun's rays in a focused form. You intensified it to an extent that there was a photothermal energy transfer leading to a fire being caught on that particular piece of paper. This is exactly what happens when we use this energy, laser energy, in the first mode, that is photothermal or surgical mode. Obviously, it has its own advantages, and I cannot forget this patient of mine, 2006. This is a 16-year-old story. I was just a fresh MDS pass out, and this little kid was brought to me. She was, I think, 35 days old back then, and she had this growth in the mouth, and the mother, I remember this story, the mother broke down into tears when she was asked to fill the form in the clinic, which obviously said name of the patient, and the mother said that my daughter is 30 days old, and I have never had the time to hold a formal naming ceremony for her. Because of this growth in her mouth, I am taking her running from one hospital to the other, one clinic to the other. Some oral maxillofacial surgeon saw her, said that, we can't operate on such a young kid, she'll bleed very heavily, so we have to take her under general anesthesia, plus first give her a vitamin K injection so that the vitamin K dependent clotting factors are there in place. Then we do the procedure under GA, excise this mass, send it for a biopsy, see what it is, suture the thing up, and then take the child under sedation again to take those sutures off. The mother was damn scared, and she kept running from one hospital to the other. It was back then that somebody told her that there is one new jobless pediatric dentist in the town, why don't you meet him? So that's how they came to me, and that innocence in her eyes, I felt that I should do something with her. And this was my very first case. I did not have a laser back then. This is a 16-year-old story. Things were so bad at home that it was difficult for me to buy an aerator. How the hell will I buy a laser unit? So this was the first case ever that I did. I'm holding a bare fiber in hand. For all the youngsters who are listening, this is not how you hold the bare laser in hand. I had no choice because I had taken this on rent from an ophthalmologist. A small town ophthalmologist used this for dacrocystotomy. Dacrocystotomy is a procedure where ophthalmologists open the lacrimal ducts which are blocked. So they pass this tiny fiber through the lacrimal duct and open this. So that's a procedure called dacrocystotomy for which he was using this. So I took that fiber. I had no freaking clue which wavelength it was. I had no freaking clue whether I was using a pulse mode or continuous wave, what power settings, nothing. Simply held it in my hand. I just wanted to help that child and started like this, and this was the immediate post-op, and this was the healing after 4 days. And after that, things changed, and for 10 years after that, I was an expert cutter. And I kept thinking that I was getting these amazing results because of my good surgical skills. And then I realized that it was not my surgical skills, it was something else that was giving me such amazing healing even when I was using the laser for cutting. Now, what that something was is going to be the recipe for the day, which I'll share with you from a little while from now. That's how my operatory looks today, and very colorful, and the child can lay back and look at the television screen there. Obviously have 7 wavelengths with me, erbium for the heart tissue, and 6 different diodes for 6 different wavelengths. Anyways, things are different, and now I keep beating my own records. The youngest child that I've treated now was 3 days old, and things are different. So for the ones who are interested in knowing how the surgical lasers can help us, let's say a simple freenectomy like this, and I've given you the settings there. I usually prefer using an 810 nanometer wavelength for these kind of surgical applications because I want a clean cut, and the amount of absorption that an 810 has in hemoglobin is 8 times more than a 940 or a 980, and that makes me use the 810 very often, and that's the most versatile wavelength for me. I use it for all the three. I use it for one, that is thermal mode, two, that for photobiomodulatory mode, three, that is the photodynamic mode, right? One more patient where we do the ankyloglossia. Imagine doing this with a scalpel. The patient walks back home without a single suture. Is that possible with a scalpel surgery? No, it will bleed like crazy. We need to suture the whole thing up, and the patient is in extreme excruciating pain. Especially for a pediatric dentist like me, it's very difficult to see. So that's the reason why I prefer to keep my surgical field absolutely blood free, pain free. Patient walks back home without sutures, not a single antibiotic or a painkiller. And more often than not, these kind of procedures do not need any kind of an anesthesia unless the patient is extremely sensitive. If he or she is so sensitive that he or she cannot even tolerate the heat of the laser, then we need to obviously give the LA. But I have a method of doing that. I first do the photobiomodulation and then give the LA, so that the prick also becomes very comfortable for the patient. Now, what exactly I mean by photobiomodulation, I'll come to that when I come to the second aspect of the laser healing triangle. So right now I am in the first aspect. You can see that on the screen on the right hand side it says 1 dot photothermal. That means I'm using the laser, the pure form of energy, in a high power mode to cut tissues. I wanted to start the lecture with this because it's always easy to learn something new from starting with an anchor of what we have already known. So this is something that everybody knows. So that's why I thought that I'll start with something that is known rather than starting with something that is unknown. So if you have a comparison between the surgical outcomes of using a scalpel versus the surgical outcomes of using a diode laser, the results are obvious. I mean, you don't need any, this is a no-brainer. I don't have to explain which one the patient would choose or the parent would choose if it's a pediatric patient. So obviously we would choose the one on the right hand side and not the one on the left hand side. You can see how the wound would otherwise gape and how the sutures would be mandatory if we used a scalpel, right? Again, on the lingual, that's actually a pretty clean scalpel surgery what you're seeing on the left hand side, but otherwise in a growing child doing an ankyloglossia, it's such a painful thing, and it is the floor of the mouth is full of blood. So if you can avoid that, nothing like it. So when I talk of money heist, obviously I need to talk about the most popular, one of the most popular characters, Nairobi. She was the one who told that ethics is important in life, but so is aesthetics. So can you restrict the use of diode lasers in photothermal mode only to clinical applications like cutting, or can you use it for aesthetic procedures also? Yes, you can. You can use it for a gingival depict, that is the pink part of the aesthetics, or you can use it for teeth whitening, that is the white part of the aesthetics. So I know a lot of eyebrows will be raised looking at this case because I have used laser teeth whitening in a mixed dentition. So any pediatric dentist listening would say, we were told that you can't do laser whitening in a growing child with a mixed dentition. So hold on. I'll give you the basis, the evidence for this science. That's my paper published in the International Journal of Laser Dentistry. What exactly happens? What is the degree of enamel solubility and depth of demineralization when we use laser for teeth whitening in growing children? So these are the results for you, and you can see that by far the laser used in the right settings is the safest to be used even in a growing child with a young permanent tooth and the virgin enamel that it has. So what are the photothermal applications in endodontics? I was told that predominantly this meeting, this symposia will be attended by endodontists. So they would be interested in knowing why and how they would use the photothermal aspects, that is the heat producing aspect of a laser, for endodontic applications. So let me share a few of my thoughts on how you could use that in endodontics. Now, I'm not here to teach you endo. I mean, you have, many accomplished teachers who have already spoken to you, who keep teaching you every day. I'm not here to tell you what you need to be doing in endodontics, but what exactly is the interplay between the microorganisms and how we need to get rid of them from the canals, and how we need to assist the periodontal tissues or the periapical tissues to heal should be the focus of my discussion today. So when I talk about endodontics, what pediatric endodontics that I teach my postgraduates in periodontics, I tell them two things. I tell them, whenever you approach a child with an abscess or your child with a tooth that is irreversibly inflamed, I give them a simple story. I tell them, in this story, there is a victim, there is a culprit. So I ask them, where do you think is the culprit in this, and who do you think is the victim in this? Then they figure it out eventually that it is always the culprit which is hiding in the form of microorganisms inside the canals. Unfortunately, it is the periapical tissues which are the victims of this culprit which is there inside the canal. So the culprit is there inside the canal, and it is the periapical tissue which is a victim, which is outside the canal, obviously. So don't you think that any endodontic intervention, whether we are doing it in a child patient or whether we are doing it in an adult patient, should be focused on both of these? Give it a thought. Let that sink in. You have a culprit, you have a victim. Is it enough if you simply eliminate the culprit from the canals and expect that the victim will heal on his or her own? Is that right? Or should we help the victim to heal and not just stop at eliminating the culprit from the canals? Think about it. So if you are so good at using the fanciest of fine systems, from gold to all kinds of fancy tapers, why do teeth which are endodontically treated still fail? Think. The influence of bacterial persistence in the root canals on the treatment outcome is probably the biggest issue for you guys in endodontics, because when I do the same thing in a child patient, I still have a leeway because I expect that endodontically treated tooth in the child to eventually shed off. You guys cannot do that. So think about it, how important it is for all of you to ensure that your endo does not fail. And for that, you need to understand how you tackle the culprit and how you will help the victim to heal. So simply trying to use a fancy file system and making your obturations look good is not going to help you in doing that. And I'll give you some more evidence on what I'm trying to tell you. So if an apical periodontitis persists or emerges after you do the endodontic intervention, that means you have clearly not eliminated the culprit, and that's why the victim is still bleeding, right? What does the evidence say? Sequeira et al., your journals, International Endodontic Journal, it says that the etiology of root canal treatment failures, more often than not, seemingly when everything looks good, the tooth is looking good, it can still fail if it is inhabited by organisms such as the E. faecalis. And that there is more evidence for you. If you look at the top reasons for endodontic failures, persistence of bacteria and debris in the canal tops that list. Again, one of the more cherished pieces of literature, Jogren et al. From O. Now have a look at this. This is a beautiful description of what I'm trying to tell you. Look at these four graphs. Compare the number of the microbial cells on the left hand side on the graph to what's appearing on the radiograph with regards to that particular tooth. So when the number of microbial cells are below the threshold, there is no periapical lesion. That is in the A. Look at the B. The number of the microbial cells crosses the threshold, and look at what's happening at the periapex of that tooth. You have got a lesion there, right? Then you are skilled, you are trained in endo, you do the endo. What happens in the C? You eliminate majority of those microorganisms, the microbial counts start to dip again, come closer to the threshold, and once it comes below the threshold, you can see in the D, look at the radiograph, the periapical lesion has healed. So if you go by what Theobald Smith says, an infectious disease is the result of the interplay between microbial virulence and the load as well as the host defense. So if you just reduce the load of the microorganisms, you are only eliminating the culprit, you have done only half the job. You still have to assist the host defense so that the periapical tissues, which are the victim, heal uneventfully, right? Now, this is very astonishing. 2D success versus 3D failure. These are two images of the same tooth taken on the same day. One is a periapical radiograph, the other one is a cone beam CT. Tell me, what is success and what is failure? What appears as success two-dimensionally is a failure three-dimensionally. What your periapical radiograph could not pick up looks so ominous on a cone beam CT. So what do you understand from this? What we understand from this is that close to 75%, sorry for that, close to 75% of the good looking radiographs. What is a good looking radiograph, by the way? Those radiographs which get you an A plus from your guide. क्या obturation है, beautiful. Those A plus radiographs can still harbor microorganisms. What you look two-dimensionally may not be the case actually inside the tooth, right? So sorry to disappoint all of you. Radiographic aesthetics means nothing in endodontics. Nothing. Your obturations may look awesome, you may get an A plus for that. That doesn't guarantee that your tooth is not going to fail. Your RC treated tooth is not going to fail because, let's get it straight, success does not depend on canal shape, success does depend on canal cleanliness. Very simple. I am not here to teach you endo. I am here to tell you what are the pitfalls of your contemporary systems and how laser science can help you to overcome those shortcomings. You use the most fancy rotary file systems in the world, and this is what happens. You don't even touch 40% of the canals. 40% of the canal surfaces remain untouched. So basically, my issue, my point here is that 40% of those untouched surfaces still harbor the culprit, still harbor the microorganisms. And whatever taper you wish to give, it is essentially meant to make the job of the irrigant easy. You don't want your radiograph to look good because of the taper. You want your irrigant to reach the most inaccessible of the parts of the canal so that you are able to eliminate as many culprits as possible. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not an endodontist. You guys are masters in that. This is how I have understood it. So, according to me, and that is what the great man Stephen Buchanan said when I happened to meet him a few years ago. And this was one of his articles wherein he looked at the Shielder's shaping legacy. And let me read this out for you. And he says, according to Buchanan, there will be increasing emphasis on canal disinfection and efficacious irrigation methods. Ultimately, as irrigation becomes more thorough and faster, our need for shape in the root canals we are treating will lessen. We don't need a particular shape. What we need is a particular degree of cleanliness, not according to me, according to the great man. And he says, if we can use systems such as the photon-initiated photoacoustic streaming or other intracanal energy sources, we can be able to eliminate those culprits, those organisms. Obviously, he was referring to the use of laser energy. What exactly you mean by photon-initiated photoacoustic streaming, I'll come to that in a little while from now. But for now, let's understand lasers in endodontics, how lasers can help you. Let's start with the evolution. Let me tell you a simple fact. One simple take-home message for the day is this: where nothing can reach, light can reach. Mark this down. inside your canal, inside your furcation, inside your periapical tissue, in the accessory, in that damn MB2 that you struggle to find, where nothing can reach, light can definitely reach, because lasers can penetrate up to 1 mm laterally into the dentinal tubules. I am not talking about the lateral canals, ladies and gentlemen. I am talking about the main canal, which has the dentine, which is infected. You may eliminate all the microorganisms from the main canal and obturate it beautifully. What is going to happen to those organisms which are hiding almost 800 to 900 microns laterally into those tubules? That is the reason why sometimes you look at a perfectly treated tooth, it still fails, because perfectly treated radiographically, not microbiologically. That's what I told. We were supposed to be healers to begin with, but somewhere along this journey we got so obsessed with our mechanical concepts that we seem to have lost that understanding that we are biologists to begin with. Our aim is just not to make good restorations and good looking radiographs. Our aim is to heal the patient, relieve his pain, relieve his suffering, and you can accomplish that by using the right kind of technology. In order to maximize the bactericidal and smear removal capabilities whilst minimizing the thermal effects, according to Professor G. Olivi, we need to use a direct diode if we are using it, always in the presence of a liquid in the canal, either sodium hypochlorite or 17% DDTA or chlorhexidine, whatever suits you, right? This is what I was trying to tell you. Where nothing reaches, light can reach. Look at this penetration depth of any irrigant after the best of file systems that you have used. It can't go beyond 100 microns. Bacteria can be hiding, especially Enterococcus faecalis. It's so fastidious. It can be hiding in the most micro-aerophilic of those tiny crevices inside a dentinal tubule up to 1000 microns. How are you going to reach there? That's why I repeat this once more. Where nothing reaches, light can. Think about it. Look at that study from Moritz et al. More than 1000 microns, because if you are using a wavelength like 810, it has got a penetration of more than a centimeter because it lies in the near infrared part of the electromagnetic spectrum. So 810 near infrared can penetrate more than 1 centimeter laterally. Today we have got diodes which have the radial firing option. That means the radial firing option which was there in the erbium is available even in diode lasers today. And those radial firing tips give us 70% lateral emission, 30% frontal emission, perfect for a root canal disinfection. How do I say that with so much of authority? Let me give you some evidence. Diode lasers for pediatric endodontics, my study which was published in the Journal of Dental Lasers, used an E200 tip, and this is how we have, you can see that we've used a rubber dam on a primary tooth and used the E200 tip with an 810 nanometer diode, right? And we took 3 samples. The first sample was taken soon after the axis opening. The second sample was taken and transferred to the culture after doing a perfect biomechanical preparation and after the so-called assumption that the canal is now ready for obturation. Uske baad liya second sample, and the third sample was taken after a diode 810 with an E200 fiber was used to disinfect the canals. And what did we get? We infused it on a brain heart infusion, right? What did we get? Have a look at this. Aerobic blood agar, anaerobic blood agar, rugosa. The one which is in red are the number of colonies before chemomechanical debridement. The one you see in the blue are more dangerous than the red, because when you took the first sample which contributes to the red pillars on this graph, we were sure that the canals were infected. The ones which are showing the graph in blue are more dangerous according to me, because that is when we assumed that our rotary file system and our 5.25% sodium hypochlorite with agitation was good enough for us to go ahead and obturate the tooth. Unfortunately, it was not the case. You had all those blue colonies even after your conventional biomechanical preparation. We would have simply gone ahead and obturated those teeth, assuming that they are ready for obturation. What you see in the green, you don't see anything in the green at all, because you get nothing left inside the canal after you use a laser, because it is going to penetrate 1000 microns laterally. Amazing, isn't it? That's why I keep repeating, where nothing goes, light will. Please remember that. How do you do that? This is how we do it. A wet canal, maybe with sodium hypochlorite, maybe with 17% EDTA, maybe saline, anything will do, but it has to be a wet canal. You take a 200 micron fiber, go 1 mm short of the working length, right? And then in slow concentric circles, you withdraw the fiber, spending about 15 seconds, 15 to 20 seconds per canal. Why am I stressing on the fact that you should not be doing this in a dry canal? Because you are using the laser in a thermal mode. You are still in the 1 of laser Veda, 1, that is photothermal. So the thermal mode generates so much of heat that if you are using it in a dry canal without a liquid, then you can end up charring the dentine, causing collateral damage. That's the reason why it has to be done in a wet canal. Going further, what are the recent advances in photoacoustic applications in endodontics? What I discussed so far is what we could do with a diode. If you want to go one step further, I'll share with you what you can do with regards to the photoacoustic applications. Remember, we are still in the 1 of laser surgery. We are still using it in a high power mode. And that impact, that tsunami of sorts, is called photon induced photoacoustic streaming. Even this is outdated now. The current thing what we have is a shock wave emission enhanced photoacoustic streaming called as sweeps. So for all those exam going PGs, if you want to write recent advances in endodontic irrigation, PIPS gaya. PIPS is a 10-year-old story. PIPS के बाद PIPS का बाप आया है, which is called sweeps. You can write it down, SWEEPS. Shock wave emission enhanced photoacoustic streaming. ये होता क्या है? What exactly is this photoacoustic streaming? Let's understand PIPS first. We are slowly but surely moving towards the era of minimally invasive biomimetic endodontics. वो ज़माना गया where you would use a 6% file down to the apex and cut so much of dentine that ultimately after the obturation, a few days into function, the tooth would fracture. You don't want that kind of a scenario. We are slowly but surely realizing the fact that dentine is worth its weight in gold. That's the reason why we need to conserve it. We can't simply, go by that concept that you can keep sacrificing the dentine unless you get clean dentinal shavings, unless you get a huge canal which looks beautiful on the radiograph, only to end up fracturing the tooth later. So we need to enhance our disinfection efficacy without sacrificing healthy dentine. Please remember that. How do we do that? That is what photoacoustics is all about. We use an erbium YAG laser in a high power mode and we create a tsunami inside the canal because erbium loves water. This is the kind of ripple effect it has. I'm sorry for that. See the pulse of the erbium. The moment it hits the fluid, whether it is saline, whether it is EDTA, whether it is hypochlorite, it creates a ripple, it creates a tsunami inside the canal, right? And this is the master who says that using the shockwave irrigation is going to be the future of root canal disinfection, but because it takes less than 1 minute to give these kind of crystal clear, completely decontaminated dentinal tubules after PIPS. We call this as the Venturi effect, and this happens because of somebody who's interested in physics can go and read the Bernoulli's law. When a fluid enters from a diameter of a larger dimension to a narrow gauge, how its velocity increases, how it increases the pressure and rips everything apart and blows the debris as well as the bacteria towards the coronal aspect and not towards the periapex. This is called as the Bernoulli's law, and one of my studies on photoacoustic streaming in endodontics was published recently, 2021, in Contemporary Clinical Dentistry, and I'm interested in showing you the graph on the right hand side. Look at the group 2 intervention. Nothing, no growth in the photoacoustic streaming group. This was an in vitro trial which we had done in pediatric root canals. and zero growth in the PIPS group. So how exactly it is done? Let me play this for you. This is how PIPS works. You do the axis, you can still use the erbium yak for the axis if you want to. Then you shape the root canal the way you would like to do it, but being minimally invasive with less instrumentation, because your aim is to not get a radiographically good looking obturation. Your aim is to get a perfectly disinfected canal. Now you use the PIPS fiber. The beauty of it is that it is creating a tsunami, it is creating a ripple. All the bubbles are moving coronally. The Bernoulli's law in motion. Now comes the sweeps, where you are creating a double shock wave. Compare the PIPS as well as the sweeps, you will understand how much more effective sweeps is. And it just doesn't remove the smear layer, it removes the microorganisms from within the dentinal tubules also, and that's how they look after the disinfection. Right? Beautiful, isn't it? This is going to be the future of endodontics. Of course, you can use the same erbium yak for endodontic surgery, for cutting, whatever episectomy that you want to do. Essentially, we are coming to the close of the first pillar of the laser healing triangle. We have used the laser in a high power surgical mode to either incise, excise, curate, cut, whatever. The essential role played by this is to either work as a substitute for the scalpel or the drill or assist in endodontic disinfection. Essentially, the goal is to remove a noxious foci, and we have used a high power laser for doing that. Correct? For most of the self-proclaimed laser pundits, the journey of laser dentistry stops here. क्यों? हो गया ना? डायोड से कटिंग किया, फ्रीनेक्टमी किया, एंकाइलोग्लासिया किया, जिंजाइवल डिपिक किया, डायोड को कैनाल में यूज किया, अर्बियम यूज किया, अर्बियम से एक्सेस किया, अर्बियम से कैनाल को डिसइंफेक्ट किया, अर्बियम से पिप्स हो गया, अर्बियम से एपिसेक्टमी सर्जिकली. We use the erbium to cut the bone, cut the tooth, the root apice also. Again, no bleeding, minimum bleeding, no sutures. Finished. This is laser dentistry. Is it so? No. For us, the journey starts now. Now I'm going to tell you something which is going to blow your mind off. And that's why I call this the lesser known phase of laser dentistry. The two that I'm here to tell you, talk to you about. One is photothermal. Two is photobiomodulatory, which the world does not know about. So what exactly is this biomodulatory laser? This is the same pure energy but used in a very low intensity to stimulate the tissues and not to cut them. There is no heat generated here. That is the reason why our cells in the body love this. How does this work? This works to keep us alive, just like the plants. You see greenery all around you. Have you ever wondered why is it that the plants do not fall sick? Do they? Yes, they do. How many of us go and tend to those plants by applying an antibiotic paste? Do they need that? Do they need any pharmaceuticals for that matter to get all right? No, they heal on their own. How do they do that? Have you imagined how plants are able to produce their food? Think, they have chromophores which can absorb sunlight and produce their own food. Correct? This is not something new. Right? This we had learned way back in our 7th standard probably. We call that photosynthesis. Now I'll astonish you by telling you something, that something similar can happen with our own bodies if we have the right wavelength of light to stimulate our chromophores. Just like the plants have a pigment to absorb sunlight, we also have cytochrome C oxidase in the mitochondria of all our cells in the body, whether it is the hair follicle or the toenail, to absorb low intensity light. That is the reason why this can be used to treat something like a traumatic brain injury, peripheral neuropathy, mucositis, xerostomia, trismus, radiation dermatitis, wound healing, laser acupuncture. Have I gone crazy? No, I'm giving you the evidence for this. That's why I told this is something that is not associated conventionally with laser science, because this is difficult for people to imagine. Very easy for them to imagine cutting. This is something which needs a lot of understanding about the biology, about what is going to go where and how you're going to get the results. Forget dermatitis, forget the extra oral or general body effects. Let's come to the intraoral effects, basic effects. Dentinal hypersensitivity, mandibular distraction, TMJ pain, TMJ discomfort, burning mouth syndrome, herpes simplex virus, lichen planus, xerostomia, alveolar nerve damage. Have I gone crazy? No, these fancy things which are written in the blue are the references for what I am talking. Please go back and check. How? How is this possible? This is possible because we are slowly but surely moving towards an era of photoceuticals, where photons in the low energy mode can influence a variety of body tissues within the oral cavity as well as outside the oral cavity. How does that work? It can even accelerate orthodontic tooth movement or integrate an implant better. How? It works on the principle of photobiology. I told you, get ready for the quantum leap. This is something that the world doesn't know about. Quantum leap, because the quanta that we are associated with is all about cutting. The same quantum of energy can be used for other applications by stimulating the cytochrome C oxidase in this beautiful organelle called mitochondria, which is there in all the cells of the human body, whether it is the brain, whether it is the oral cavity, whether it is the hand, whether it is the leg, whether it is an odontoblast, whether it is an osteoblast, whether it is an epithelial cell. All the cells in the body have got to obey the same laws of biology. All of them have got mitochondria, all of them need adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy currency essential for body healing and anti-inflammatory action as well as pain relief. So if you look at this beautiful little organelle called mitochondria, you have the outer membrane, you have the inner membrane, and the transmembrane connector, where we have the cytochrome C oxidase, which will absorb low powers of light and give us more adenosine triphosphate. This is like energy fuel for the cells, and that ATP is going to drive all the cellular activity, whether it is the neurons in our brain, whether it is the muscles in our heart. All of them have got to obey the same laws of biology. Have a look at this.
Laser science begins with a look at how light interacts with the human body to provide a therapeutic response. All light is composed of photons. Photons are small packets of light energy. This energy penetrates the skin and underlying structures and holds their intensity until being absorbed by the human body. More specifically, looking at laser therapy, first, laser light at specific wavelengths, primarily in the infrared and invisible spectrum from 700 to 1200 nanometers, is delivered to the tissue via a probe in contact mode with the surface of the skin. Second, the light enters the cell's mitochondria and is absorbed by the chromophores, including the protein cytochrome C oxidase, or CCO, which then increases its activity. Third, as a result of the heightened activity, three molecules are affected. The first, adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, where we see an increase in the main energy source for the majority of cellular functions. The second, reactive oxygen species, or ROS, which activates transcription factors positively impacting cellular repair and healing. And the third, nitric oxide, or NO, which increases circulation, decreases inflammation, and enhances the transport of oxygen and immune cells throughout the tissue, ultimately resulting in the clinical outcomes of reduction in pain, reduction in inflammation, increased range of motion, and helping the body heal itself.
Reduction in pain, reduction in inflammation, increasing the range of motion, helping the body heal itself. This is exactly what I was trying to tell you when I told that this is one beautiful science which can give us our healing touch back, right? So we all know that when we go into the sunlight, The body uses the sunlight to produce vitamin D, correct? That time we never questioned कि ये हमें पता ही नहीं था. This is something that we all know. Forget that. In fact, the same light can be used for treating something like Alzheimer's, something like cerebrovascular dementia, peripheral neuropathy, and non-healing wound recovery. Then why is it this not mainstream science yet? For something to become mainstream science, we need a lot of research on that, and the research that happens in the laboratories have to translate and reach the clinical portals. Now, tell me, how many of you do not know that by simply using blue light, we can treat neonatal icterus or juvenile jaundice? Majority of the kids who are born suffer from this kind of a jaundice in the early days of life, and it's mainstay, it's commonplace to have a blue light chamber in any and every pediatric ward, including the government hospitals. Have you all wondered how this light works even without touching the child? How can it cure jaundice? How is it mainstream science? It is mainstream science because this was accidentally discovered in a hospital in Essex, where the nurse who had left behind the blood sample of a jaundice patient which had higher bilirubin, she had left it exposed to blue light, and after a certain period of time she realized that because of the exposure to the blue light, the amount of bilirubin that was there in that blood in the test tube, the amount of bilirubin had reduced. That is when they realized that there is some effect between this light and jaundice, and today it is mainstream, right? So that's what I told you. The use of phototherapy was discovered accidentally in a hospital in Essex. So similarly, we need to understand that more effective utilization of laser in the low energy, low power stimulatory form can give us angiogenesis, sprouting of new blood vessels, collagen production, muscle regeneration, neuronal regeneration, cartilage production, depending on where we are going to use that for healing. So this paper is from the Journal of Clinical Medicine, not dentistry. Clinical Medicine 2020. Please go back and read this. What is photobiomodulation and what are the underlying mechanisms and clinical applications? Anyways, you might say that we are not here to treat medicine patients. We want to know the applications of lasers in our area of interest. Perfect. Let's start with TMJ and craniofacial pain. Let's not go into the details about the mechanisms because the mechanisms itself will take me half an hour to explain. So by the first one, depolarization of the nerve conduction, and by the transient axonal vesiculations which block the nerve impulse from jumping from one node of Ranvier to the other in a myelinated nerve. Various mechanisms are proposed for how effective laser photobiomodulation is for pain relief. Let's come to the clinical outcomes. Real-time thermographic evidence. Look at the amount of inflammation that is there in a tennis elbow. Pre-treatment, 4 minutes with laser therapy, 8 minutes with laser therapy. How? This is the photons in action, changing a pro-inflammatory cascade to an anti-inflammatory cascade. This is what was told. Reduction in pain, reduction in inflammation, enhancement in healing and range of motion. So if this can happen with the tennis elbow, it will obviously happen with the temporomandibular joint also. Evidence for what I am saying? One theory which suggests the analgesic effect to be a consequence of the reduction in the levels of circulating prostaglandin E, which is one of the most important pro-inflammatory mediators. How it is coupled by intensification of production of adenosine triphosphate and reactive oxygen species, how the enhanced electron availability in the catalytic center of cyclooxygenase will ultimately bring about a reduction in the TMJ pain, enhancement of the range of motion, reduction in the inflammation, right? So how do we actually do it clinically? We change the probe, we use a TMJ probe and treat the TMJ directly. Of course, a specific wavelength eyewear has to be used because these laser photons should not be entering the eye. So the specific wavelength eyewear is always recommended. If the patient also has concurrent symptoms of myofascial pain dysfunction, apart from the TMJ, we treat 3 points on the masseter and about 6 to 7 points on the temporalis. So your understanding about the basic anatomy of the region that you're treating is of paramount importance in this. Trigeminal neuralgia. Any oral medicine experts listening here, sitting here, Did you ever think of anything beyond the carbamazepine 100 mg that you start with? Trigeminal neuralgia, can you treat that on a dental chair? Have a look. I can give you n number of reports like this, pain level, how it has changed in 6 sessions, 8 sessions, sometimes 4 sessions, not just in trigeminal neuralgia, in migraine, in hitherto unheard of episodes of neuralgia. Everything at first is an idea, right? And if you execute that idea well, then you create something special, is what the professor told us. Never gave up. Whatever the difficulty that he faced, he had a solution for it, because he had ideas, he had planned everything to perfect detail, right? Basically, the professor personified the fact that what the mind does not know, the eyes can never see. If he had a wrong plan or a wrong idea, the execution would be wrong. Now, if I tell you that, or probably 45 minutes before this lecture, if I told you that you will use a simple laser to treat the world's first case of SUNT with photobiomodulation, would you believe me? ये होता क्या है SUNT? This is short-lasting unilateral neuralgiform headache with conjunctival tearing. Matlab, the moment the headache starts, there are manifestations of trigeminal neuralgia on one side of the face, on the neck, and along with that, the patient starts lacrimating. You know, there is a flow of tears continuously. That's why it's called short-lasting unilateral neuralgiform headache with conjunctival tearing, tears, continuous flow of tears. Can you treat that on a dental chair? That's what I said. What your mind does not know, your eyes can never see. Have a look. So basically what I have tried to do here is try to correlate what I am doing on the left hand side to what you are seeing is the anatomy on the right hand side. And the article for this, have a look, shining light on the head, photobiomodulation for brain disorders, because apart from having SUNT, this patient was having problems with Alzheimer's also. So again, continuing the 3D concept of using a larger optical footprint. Okay, some of you, the critics may say that hame nahi karna craniofacial pain wheel. We are happy, just treating dental pain. Perfect. Have a look at this. Any prosthodontist listening? Complete denture patient, total extraction done, full mouth, right? You can see the sutures placed there. Full mouth extraction done conventionally, and we do phototherapy on the labial side and the palatal side, and the patients walk back home without a single painkiller after a full mouth extraction. Can you believe that? Please don't believe me. Please go and try it with whatever laser you have tomorrow. It may not be the ideal wavelength. If you have an 810, best thing, just put it to 100 milliwatt. Hold it against the extraction socket of a tooth which you have removed. 100 milliwatt for 60 to 120 seconds, 60 seconds on the labial side, 60 seconds on the palatal side. Do not give any painkiller to the patient. If the patient comes back or calls back saying he or she has pain, please call me back. I'll be sharing my number at the end of this presentation, because you need to do things, only then you will understand how they work, right? How many implantologists are there here? Have a look at this. 16 implants placed at one appointment, 10 in the upper, 6 in the lower. Patient walks back home without a single antibiotic, single painkiller, without a single drop of blood being loosed. Have a look. This is photobiomodulation in action. I'm using an 8 mm PBM tip for that, and I'm using an 810 nanometer wavelength for that. That's the maxillary. This is the mandibular. I have another 15 minutes to go, so I have to hurry up. You can use that as the best modality to do completely painless endodontics. Start your treatment with PBM, then do your access, do your conventional endo if you want, obturate it, and then before you send the patient, use a similar modality as I showed you on the video for the implant patient for post-endo pain. So this is how effective it is. This is the evidence for what I'm talking. Pain reduction, you can actually from start to end make the entire process painless, and like I told you, you will end up stimulating the healing of the periapical tissues. Go back to the story that I told you. You have eliminated the culprit inside the canal by using photoacoustics or photothermal diodes. That is the culprit part. What about the victim part? You still have to make sure that the periapical tissues heal, there is no apical periodontitis, and the patient goes back home comfortably. For that, you can use a similar strategy, similar power setting for doing PBM as I showed you in the case of implant. I can give that once more to you. You can take a screenshot of this. The machine is not important. What is important for me is the wavelength, 0.1 watt, that is 100 milliwatt. I'm holding it right there. Can you see that? That's a tooth which is obturated. Central incisor. Just do this for 120 seconds after every endo, and just see how the tooth heals and how the patient goes back home and never reports of any pain. This is how modern endodontics should work. You should eliminate the culprit from within the canal systems by using the best of technology, and then you need to assist your body. You need to assist the victim in the form of the periapex in this particular case by helping it heal. So when I say reduction in pain, better healing, increased range of motion, and change in the inflammatory status from pro-inflammatory to anti-inflammatory, you are actually going against the 5 itis laws of inflammation, right? Dolor, calor, rubor, functionalessa. So you reverse that, and that is where you get a better outcome for your treated case. Pediatric dentistry and pediatric surgery. I know quite a few pediatric dentists must be listening, so I have included this specially for you. A case of pediatric trauma, how do you manage this? Conventionally, we would have sutured this stuff to stop the bleeding. Have a look at what I did. That's the socket. Now I'll show you what I did. So what's the outcome? You want to see what's the outcome? Have a look. Look at the timeline. This case was done on 12th February this year, 6:41 p.m. This is how the child came to me. After the therapy, 6:59 p.m. This is how the socket looked. Not a single analgesic prick, nothing. No anesthesia given, no sutures placed, nothing. Look at the lip. at 6:41, at 6:59. Look at the inflammation. Look at the swelling. If this can change in 15 minutes, can you beat this? This was 48 hours later. Look at the socket, look at the lip. Nothing was done, not a single pharmaceutical agent used. I have thousands of cases I need to keep running. This is one of those heart-wrenching cases. 9-year-old boy with Stevens-Johnson syndrome. It was so bad that he could not even sip a glass of water. This was 48 hours after we did photobiomodulation for him. This is the protocol that we followed, published in OOO. This is how it looked while the therapy was being given. Tell me which plastic surgeon in the world can give you this kind of an outcome in 4 days. This was an old case of mine. A recent fellowship student of mine has shared one more, which I'll be sharing in the section on oral medicine. That is mind blowing. I'll just share that when I come there. Again, a heart-wrenching story. 11-year-old boy suffering from nasopharyngeal carcinoma. The chemo was started and he ended up getting grade 3 mucositis. He could not even drink a glass of milk. The mother was in tears, and this was on the 3rd day after photobiomodulation was started. In fact, this is the treatment of choice for cancer mucositis. I keep telling this to all my trainees. When you're treating a cancer patient, you cannot add more days to their life, but you can definitely add more life to their remaining days. I'll repeat that again. You may not be able to add more days to the life of a cancer patient, but by doing such treatments, you can definitely add more life to their remaining days. At least this kid could have, milk peacefully after the treatment was done. Have a look at this. I told you, I keep beating my own records. This was 3 days old. Natal teeth. I start everything with photobiomodulation. That's my go-to method for pain control. You could do the same for your endo. You could do the same for your perio. Right? Look at that kid, 3 days old. Extraction in process. It was oozing after the extraction. Then I combined the strategy. I used the modality number 1, used a different laser with a different tip to arrest the bleeding. Have a look. So this is what laser healing triangle is all about. Where you want to use PBM, where you want to use the heat to arrest the bleeding. This is how the patient goes back home. 3 days. 3 days old. This is again a heart-wrenching case. I did it 15 days back. Father and mother both are gynecologists. They stay in a town which is around 70 kilometers from my place. The child was playing on a newly laid road which had these sharp stones. It was a newly laid road full of tar, cement concrete, and the sharp stones were still there. He tripped and fell with his tongue open. It bled like crazy. Here again I had to arrest the bleeding and then do the therapy, both. I had to do PTT as well as PBM. Have a look. This is what I did to arrest the bleeding. Immediate post-op, 10 minutes later. I kept the child under observation because tongue is a crazy organ, especially in growing children. So they sometimes bite on it, sometimes the clot opens and it starts bleeding again. So I kept him under observation for 3 hours and then I sent him. This was at the time when he was being sent home, and this was 2 days later. Can you beat that? Otherwise what would have happened? He would have gone to a surgeon and they would have sutured it up nicely. And the resulting scar would leave a permanent impact on the mobility of the tongue, affecting the child's speech. Think about it. Where else can you use the laser in low power mode? Pulpotomy. Have a look. We have compared it with Formocusol, compared it with MTA, compared it with Pulpotec, and it's very obvious that the lowest degree of inflammation is found in the laser PBM group. We need to keep moving. I'm short of time. Oral medicine, pathology, and oral oncology. Mind you, some of these pictures are extremely disturbing. I'm warning those of you who are not, interested in seeing these disturbing pictures. Some of them are very, very disturbing. Let's start with something simple, submucous fibrosis. See, I keep using different optical footprints because I want to deliver the right kind of photons to the right spot. That determines how effective my treatment is. So for TMJ, I use a TMJ probe. For intraoral, I use these clippers. For intranasal, I use an intranasal device. So for transcranial, I have got bulbs. So it depends on the anatomy of the body that you are treating. Lichen planus, the Burkitt's textbook of oral medicine starts with the sentence that lichen planus can only be controlled, it cannot be cured. Acha? Seriously? Have a look. Right side cheek mucosa, extreme left is the pre-laser, second week, third week. Lichen planus, one of the most difficult things to treat. Actinic cheilitis, pre and post, 3 sessions. Young patient, 21-year-old female, who was not getting married because of this lesion. The parents were worried because this lesion was not healing for close to 8 months. And what is the standard therapy for this? Advise them not to go in the sunlight? I think we can do better than that. Have a look at this. Cheilitis granulomatosa, allergic reaction to a toothpaste. What would you do? Kenacort, Coolora gel. I think we can think beyond those things. A patient need not come to us for Kenacort and Tess or Coolora gel. He can take that over the counter. When he comes to us with so much pain, agony, I feel it's our duty to do something more than simply prescribe steroid pastes. This is the effect after 4 sessions. Tell me which plastic surgeon can give you this kind of a result. The next one is extremely disturbing. I told you this is oral oncology. This case actually is not an oncology case, but yes, it was in a way that he had a meningioma and for which he was operated, but he was getting continuous seizures because of the lesion in the brain. So because of that, he was put on carbamazepine, and because of the carbamazepine, the patient developed full-blown Stevens-Johnson syndrome. Have a look. How the hell would you treat this? The treating hospital, I told you this, the fellowship student who was there, who called me, he is a part of the team where there are neurologists, where there are intensive care specialists, where there are infectious specialists, there are people with DM medical oncology. They had no freaking clue what to do with this. It was so difficult that the patient was intubated because he was not able to breathe. The ulcerations had spread all the way up to his throat. Look at that. Show me 1 mm of the mucosa, the cheek mucosa, which is normal. 1 mm. We make a big fuss when we have a small ulcer in the mouth. Imagine what this patient must be going through. That was on the left side, this is on the right side. Extremely disturbing, heart-wrenching, isn't it? So it was decided, his oxygen saturation was dropping because he was unable to breathe properly, even with the intubation. So we had to treat this patient inside the intensive care unit, taking the portable laser unit inside the intensive care unit. Would you like to see what happened after 3 days? You will not believe your eyes. Brace yourself. Right? Brace yourself. This is how we started. This was 3 days later. Can you beat that? This is how we started. This was 3 sessions later. Can you graft such things? Even if you are a plastic surgeon, can you take a skin graft and do this? So the next time you curse yourself for having chosen dentistry, please ask yourself, such a patient with the best of medical team had no freaking answer for this condition. It took a dentist to treat him. Think. Remember this? Left cheek mucosa, This is the same left cheek mucosa after 3 sessions of PBM. Before, after. Please give me a price tag on this. Iska koi mole hai? Give me a price tag on this. How much should we charge this patient? It's beyond that. Think. Cancer. Hemimaxillectomy done. Nothing is healing. Look at that ulceration there. And look at what happens after the photobiomodulation 2 sessions. In fact, now it is the standard of care in Europe. You need to compulsory see a laser specialist, get a round of prophylactic photobiomodulation done. Only then you will be taken for chemo or radiation. And this is my paper on the same topic, which was recently published in the Annals of the Romanian Society for Cell Biology, how effective laser photobiomodulation is in the management of cancer-induced mucositis. Anybody who wants to read this, send me an email. I'll be more than glad to share this with you. Pediatric and adult ortho. The current buzz is accelerated orthodontics. You can do that by simply using the right wavelength of light, because just like we have a chromophore in the mitochondria, we have a chromophore called osteoprotegrin. Osteoprotegrin is a decoy receptor which blocks the docking of rank and rankle. When the rank and the rankle do not dock, they do not produce controlled osteoclastogenesis, and that's the reason why bone resorption takes ages. That's the reason why canine retraction takes a long time and orthodontic tooth correction and movement takes 2 years, 3 years. By simply using photobiomodulation at the right stage, we can not just reverse this, we can make this as fast as 60 to 70% acceleration compared to the regular ones. Whether you are using Invisalign, whether you are using MBT, whether you are using Damons, it works equally well because it works directly on the osteoclasts. This is my paper on the subject, not just acceleration. It will obviously give you a completely pain-free orthodontics also. Again, anyone interested in reading this, send me a mail. I'll be more than glad to share this with you. How it is done clinically, कैसे होता है ये? Have a look. That's how you accelerate the canine retraction. I'll take 5 minutes more because we still have 1 column left. We are done with the PTT 1. We have done with 2 photobiomodulation. 3 is photodynamic therapy. How did the COVID vaccine work? Any idea? Going by the way the number of people who were posting selfies while taking a vaccine, it was understood that the COVID vaccine was actually inactivated. It had to get activated by the radiation that would come from your cell phone while taking the selfie, correct? Jokes apart, this is how photodynamic therapy also works. You have a exogenous chromophore, a dye which can be placed inside a periodontal pocket or inside an endodontic canal or around an implant site, and you use a specific wavelength of laser to activate it in very low power. That will release the reactive oxygen species, singlet oxygen radicals, and then you will get the desired outcomes. This is how it works. Photosensitizer, activated with the right wavelength, and the effects will give you the clinical outcome. There can be type 1, type 2 reactions. This is from my publication on photodynamic therapy for mucormycosis. So you need to understand, you can't simply mix and match. You have an iPhone, you need an iPhone charger. Similarly, if you have a methylene blue dye, you have to use a 660 nanometer wavelength. Or if you are using a green dye, Endosynergy green, you have to use a 810 nanometer wavelength. You can't mix and match. I'm sorry, majority of the publications in reputed journals also these days have weird company-driven agendas where they have used betadine, they have used 940 nanometer, they have used 980 nanometer. You can't change the optical affinity in nature. Just like you can't change the periodic table. You remember the periodic table in chemistry? All those elements have been placed on the periodic table based on a certain agenda, certain logic, certain optical affinity. You can't change that. Similarly, you can't simply try any photosensitizer with any wavelength just to boost the sales of a particular brand. So please remember, green dye works only with 810, blue dye works only with 660. You can use it, like I told you, in root canal disinfection, pocket, periimplantitis, more so in implantology. I'll show you a quick video of how it is used.
The procedure to use No Green is extremely simple, and the whole concept is very, very predictable. All that we got to do in the first step is to use a ready mix of the Novo Green dye and place it within the sulcus or inside the pocket or around an implant. In step 2, we allow the Novo Green dye to soak for 4 minutes. This is a very important step because we wish to coat all the microorganisms with the green dye before we activate it with a specific wavelength of 810 nanometer laser. In step 3, we use a tailor-made 810 nanometer laser with a specific 3 mm photodynamic therapy tip to activate the dye.
I just showed this for a periodontal pocket because I was told that period PGs also will be part of the audience. You can do the same thing inside endodontic canals. You can use the same strategy for decontaminating implants, and after you're done with it, you can still use photobiomodulation around the implant to enhance the osseointegration. Here is the evidence for what I'm saying. This enhances the osteoblastic activity, leading to a better integration between the bone and the implant interface. So towards the concluding part, can we make a difference to the world which is suffering from COVID right now? Yes, we can. In the time of crisis, like I told you, the wise build the bridges where the fools build barriers. So we can build a bridge and use the strategies to manage mucormycosis, fungal infections. This was one of my papers recently published on mucormycosis and laser therapy, where we have discussed how we can use the blue laser for detecting mucormycosis and how we can use photodynamic therapy for treating mucormycosis. After that, this is beyond the scope of this presentation because I'm running short of time. I want to tell you all one thing, that post COVID-19, uncertainty is going to be the new certainty. So it's high time we find our niche. Only then we will be able to evolve and conquer. So to find your niche, you need to upskill yourself. That's the only way. Please don't keep waiting that 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 2 years from now, things will settle. No, uncertainty is the new certainty, and that's going to be the case. So the only thing that we need to do is get started. How do you choose the laser? Choose something that works for majority of the applications. It should be able to do 1, 2 and 3. It should be able to do surgery. It should be able to do photobiomodulation. It should be able to do photodynamic therapy also. So that's what is important. 1, 2, 3. You should be able to use it for aesthetics, teeth whitening, craniofacial pain, photodynamic therapy, PBM, and laser dentistry is no longer expensive. Some of these units, most versatile ones, are available for less than 1,99,000 now. So you can make that choice and then go for it. When I was a kid, this was how I looked. This was my story from the 4th block to the Forbes. Life has been very kind. I will close by showing one video that my neighbor has made about my journey from 4th block to Forbes. And I would show that video and then close and thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to spend this beautiful morning with all of you. I think I overshot by 10 minutes. I'm sorry for that. Last one video of my neighbor showcasing my journey, and then I open the forum for discussion. I'm told one important thing, if you want to be successful in life, mantra is very simple. Keep practicing. Don't fear that one man who has practiced 10,000 different kicks, he'll do nothing to you. Fear that one man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. There is a difference. Somebody practicing 10,000 kicks will make no difference. The man who will practice that one kick 10,000 times will end up becoming successful. Have a look.
This isn't just a 1,000-to-1 shot. This is a professional blood sport.
What is so important about driving faster than light?
So for those of you who have any doubts, you want to know more about lasers, any advice, I'm just a phone call away, or you can drop me an email if you want to read any of those articles. I once again thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity and apologize to the chairperson Shashireka madam for having overshot by almost 10 to 15 minutes. If we have time for some questions, I'll be more than glad to take them.
It was very amazing lecture. It was very much informative and very nice lecture. Thank you, Dr. Chandrasekhar.
Thank you, madam.
So
Thank you for having
we'll
me.
just open up for the question answer session. Dr. Shashireka, she will take over.
Sure.
Tremendous, Dr. Chandrasekhar. Really, it was very tremendous. And your clinical cases, God, actually, even I have eyelays with me, but I didn't think of using in biomodulation. Only 2 to 3 cases I tried doing it, but I didn't go in depth. But now definitely I will apply in my clinical practice.
Sure.
Thank you very much. And there are a lot of questions from my side as well as from the audience. So the important questions I'll ask later, I think they can transfer or
Sure.
send it to the email.
Sure.
The first question is, can laser disinfection be used instead of calcium hydroxide as an intracanal medicament?
Absolutely. Because, like I told you, slowly but surely we are moving from an era of pharmaceuticals to photoceuticals. If we have succeeded in replacing formocresol from pulpotomy, calcium hydroxide, obviously that material has served us well for so many years now. But then once you do a canal disinfection with a laser, you can penetrate 1000 micron laterally. Calcium hydroxide can at most reach 100 microns. The effect will be there about 100 microns. So can't even compare the two.
But at this note, I have my own question.
Please.
If there is a periapical lesion, okay, so what is the dimension does this laser can reach? And laser is monochromatic and it travels straight, right?
Yes.
So how can you expect the lateral dissipation of the light?
Two things, madam. lateral dissipation of the light is needed inside the canal, right? So for that, today we have got diodes which come with a radial firing option. That means when you are using an endodontic 200 micron diode fiber inside the canal, the photonic emission will be 70% lateral, 30% frontal. We call that as radial firing. That is to enhance or you to be used as an adjunct along with your sodium hypochlorite or 17% EDTA or saline as a liquid inside the canal. Now, once you are done with this, you have eliminated the culprit, right? You need to still heal the victim. So for that, we need to change the tip, remove the radial firing tip, and put an 8 mm PBM tip, which is specifically called as PBM tip, which corresponds exactly to the periapical structures, to the size of a periapex of a particular tooth. So we need to put that tip, lower the power of the laser from the surgical output to the PBM output. Typically, we come down to 0.1 watt. I showed that on one of the pictures. 0.1 watt is 100 milliwatt. So if you keep that setting and keep the 8 mm PBM tip on the periapical area of the tooth for 2 minutes, you are essentially delivering 12 joules of power. So that's how it works, and extremely effective in enhancing the healing, and the whole process is completely painless for the patient.
But I think in active abscess case, I think we can't use, right?
In active abscess cases, obviously you need to do the draining first and still use this as an adjunct for enhancing the healing.
The next question is, can laser be used as a pulp caping procedure?
Yes, it's a lot of studies are there where it has been used to arrest the bleeding at the exposure site, where it has been, in fact, I told you about low level or PBM pulpotomy. There are loads of articles where they have used to actually extirpate the entire pulp from the coronal aspect of the pulp chamber. So definitely can be used to arrest the bleeding as a pulp capper, or as well as for WEC pulpotomy. A lot of people call it as SWEX. It is WEC pulpotomy, wherein you scrape only 1 to 2 mm of the pulp from a young permanent tooth which is exposed, or you could use it in the surgical mode to do a complete coronal cervical pulpotomy. That is in the surgical mode. What I showed you here was the same thing could be accomplished by using it in a low power mode, because in pulpotomy what we need is arrest of the bleeding. Then only we can be sure that we'll be maintaining the vitality of the radicular pulp if we have eliminated the infection completely from the coronal portion. So it can be used for capping, can be used for pulpotomy, both in surgical mode as well as for in the PBM mode.
If it is in carious exposure pulp, do you think that the laser, the biomodulation technique will be helpful in that?
Basically, it enhances the body defense, madam. So the recent study which I am doing now is I am using laser to enhance the dentine deposition by odontoblasts. So we are using dentine pulp cells and stimulating them to grow and see at what level they lay down new dentine for us. So anything where the body defense enhancement is needed, this can definitely be used.
Can diode laser be used for remineralization or treating the hypersensitivity?
It takes 40 seconds for a diode laser to treat hypersensitivity. 40 seconds. You just have to isolate the tooth and then use the laser in a low power mode. 40 seconds. You do that once. Maybe if needed, if the patient is still having some amount of sensitivity, use it in 2 or 3 settings more. But not even a minute. It is that effective.
The lasers are bactericidal or bacteriostatic?
Bactericidal, depending on how much energy you are using. If you are using it in a photothermal mode, it is bactericidal, but the same bactericidal effect can be used in a non-thermal way by adding a dye. Like I told you, if you are using a methylene blue dye, you can still use that on a deep carious lesion to disinfect the cavity before you restore it. If you try to excavate that entire caries, you might run the risk of exposing the pulp. You cannot leave behind the infection, so you can simply put a dye, 1 drop of the methylene blue dye, and leave it for 4 minutes and then activate it with a 660. If you are using a green dye, use an 810. 4 minutes is all that it takes, and you will get a complete bactericidal effect.
Are you sure that how effectively you can remove the dye after you use the laser?
If you are using if you are using a composite restoration in an anterior region, that blue dye will leave a little bit of a halo around it, so it can have a aesthetic concern. But we have found a way. You can either use sodium hypochlorite or homemade vinegar. Acetic acid can be used, dipped and wiped before going ahead with the restoration. Now, what impact that will have on the bond strength of the composite resin is something that we need to figure out. But for now, when we are using that in primary teeth, we usually wipe that off and then use a glass ionomer which bonds perfectly well. So if you could still use the glass ionomer as a sandwich and then do the composite over that, you are okay. But if you leave it just like that, you are likely to get a bluish halo, especially in a aesthetically critical zone.
But the toluidine dye is used as a photochemical solution, right? So how does even that can stain?
Yes, it is a stain. It's a very common stain that is used. Methylene blue.
How it is you? What technique you are going to remove that after using the?
You just have to use a cotton pallet soaked in hypochlorite and wipe it off after it is done.
Okay, now this is in hard tissue laser. So according to you, when we are doing a cavity preparation by laser, what are the disadvantages or drawback you feel while cutting the tooth with the laser, hard tissue laser?
Only one drawback: cost. A hard tissue laser costs more than 30 lakh rupees. Otherwise, it's a pleasure. I mean, if you treat a patient with a hard tissue, do the excavation with a hard tissue laser, he'll never go back to any other dentist who's having erotus. Trust me on that. Because there are zero vibrations, zero pain. It's absolutely painless. The only side effect for us is the investment. An erbium YAG costs you well over 30 lakhs. A diode these days is available for 99,000. A surgical diode is available for 1,99,000. But the cost of the erbium is still a major hindrance. It is still in the range of 30 lakhs.
But the depth you won't be able to assess, right? When you are exposing the laser beam, the depth of the
The depth of the penetrating beam has to be assessed by understanding the parameters of the wavelength that you are using. For example, if you are talking of the erbium, you are using the 2940 nanometer wavelength, which comes in the middle part of the infrared spectrum. It's not NIR, it is MIR, the mid of the infrared spectrum. So the wavelengths which come in the mid of the infrared spectrum have got certain depth of penetration. Similarly, if you want to use lasers for photobiomodulation, let's say on a broken limb where you are using it for post-surgical or post-orthopedic pain recovery, you need a very good penetrating physiotherapy laser where you need to use the 810, which falls in the NIR spectrum, and it has got a penetration of more than a centimeter. So we need to understand the parameters, the pedigree or the culture of the photons that make up that particular wavelength that you are using for that procedure. There is a lot of learning in this. Unfortunately, for far too long, this has been used as a glorified drill or scalpel. So people think that just like I have bought a new scalpel, I bought a new erotor, I'll buy a new laser and start cutting from the next day. This is actually a 4 years of PhD wherein you draw parallels with the entire science of dentistry step by step, whether it is soft tissue, hard tissue or healing, and understand the parameters.
So according to you, there is a contactless pen and contact pen, right? While cutting the hard tissue, the tooth. So which is better?
Not according to me. There are more than 100 randomized control trials on this.
Okay.
I mean, there is enough and more evidence for its applications.
There are many questions. Ma'am, Sunanda ma'am, do you want me to ask or because the short of time?
You can share my email with them. You can
share with you.
Okay, I will conclude with last question. What are the contraindications of lasers, use of lasers?
There are no absolute contraindications, but there are a few precautions which we need to take. One is the requisite eyewear that we need to use that has to be wavelength specific. Again, wavelength is the big deal for me. What I mean to tell you is, if you are having an eyewear which suits a certain wavelength, you need to change that eyewear if you change the wavelength. The eyewear that you use for a diode laser cannot be used for an erbium heart tissue. First thing. Second thing, if you are treating, you doing photobiomodulation on a pregnant lady, don't direct the beam on the growing fetus. You can treat her very well. There are zero contradictions, but do not irradiate the thyroid directly and do not irradiate the a growing fetus directly. So if we take care of these 2-3 simple things, then there are no absolute contraindications as such.
Thank you for this wonderful lecture. So as to conclude, we need to understand the concept and type of procedure we are doing. So looking to the future, laser-based photobiochemical reaction hold a great promise for additional application and becomes an essential component of contemporary dental practice over the next decade. So once again, I thank the entire team of Endosynergy. Thank you. Special thanks to Sarvesha ma'am and Sunanda ma'am for this opportunity. Thank you and congratulate for the successful event. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chandrasekhar sir, for showing us a new dimension of dentistry, for showing a totally new path. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Shashireka ma'am, for wonderfully chairing the session. This is a small token of appreciation. Please accept it, sir, ma'am.
Sure. Thank you so much. It was an honor being here. Thank you for that certificate. Thank you once again, Sunanda madam, Sarvesha madam, and all the team members involved in Endosynergy. Special word of thanks to Shashireka madam for being patient enough to chair the session for more than 1.5 hours.
Definitely, I'll be contacting you.
Sure, madam. Anytime.
Anyway, I've taken a screenshot of your number. I will trouble you.
Anytime.
We request Dr. Richard to give the vote of thanks.
Hello, sir. Thank you very much for taking us on the amazing journey of your energy heist. Today's lecture was definitely very insightful on the topic of lasers. I thank you for taking time out from your busy schedule with us. I express my deep gratitude towards Dr. Shashireka ma'am for chairing today's session. It was our pleasure to have you, ma'am. I thank you both of you from the entire team of Endosynergy for sparing the time for today. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. I thank each and everybody for being with us. Tomorrow we have got 2 lectures by Dr. Sai Kalyan sir on regenerative endodontics and by Dr. Pratima Shenoy ma'am on if smile is power, tooth whitening is to empower it. Please join us tomorrow. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Chandrasekhar.
Thank you.
Shashireka.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot for
Thank
this
you so
opportunity,
much.
ma'am.
Thank you so much.
And best wishes, ma'am, for your future.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. One day to go.
Yeah. Then I can have a sleepless. Now, though you have sleepless night, then you can have.
No, you all are there. No worry.
Definitely, ma'am. Always.